Andy Dufresne, who crawled through a river of shit and came out clean on the other side. I thought about doing the shoes one.
Love that. That's my favorite quote ever.
Since we mentioned it countless times before, especially in the Spider-Man discussions. But it's part of a long monologue that Red has. Like one of the many long monologues that he has throughout the film.
You don't say.
And I didn't want to spend like 2 minutes straight just repeating
it. You just end it with the question that he poses.
That's true. I mean, since when do you look at a man's shoes?
Yeah.
That's my Morgan Freeman. How would you rate my Morgan Freeman out of 10?
It's not bad.
Yeah.
A 7.
That's very fair. That's very generous.
Yeah.
I probably would have given it a 5, but you know, I'm
actually,
my own worst critic.
Yeah, same. After listening to the Spider-Man pod, still getting through it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So how come? And I guess I was gonna maybe ask you this when we were getting dinner together, but how come you feel so critical about your own viewpoint on our Spider-Man discussion?
I listened to another pod. You know, I wish I listened to more pods, and I guess you know that's a me thing. But it's a baseball pod, and there's a guy in there that played ball. So he's kind of the not necessarily. He's kind of like the knowledge. He's also a colorful character, but he steamrolls a lot of the conversation. Not a lot, but he'll steamroll conversations, and he doesn't pick up on cues on when to let someone kind of cut in. You know,
right.
And that's one of the things, like when anyone pods, truly, I mean, this is just word of the wise, you got to find those cues when people are cutting in and pick up on where the conversation's going and what everyone else is thinking about. So I think like in the moment, sometimes I get so giddy to talk about something. It's not necessarily I stop listening, but it's like, all right, that's a great point. Let's get to this point, you know, instead of letting it marinate and kind of go through and talk about it. And after listening to it, I'm just like, man, I was so excited to talk about that stuff. It's like, you know, just push through it. And then some of the phrases that I say, yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, not to just like make you feel better, but I also feel that way when I listen back to a lot of the episodes. I shouldn't say a lot. Like there's a few where I listen back to, especially if I'm editing them, where I'm like, either it's clear that I just have a point that I want to jump in and say that has like little to no relation of what was being discussed before, or it's me very like not so subtly like just kind of like drifting off and not really paying that much attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
Either because I'm tired or because my mind wanders from some like fucking weird undiagnosed ADHD brain that I have. But yeah, I get the same thing.
Oh yeah.
So you don't have to worry that you're the only one.
It's not. It's you're your own worst critic. So that's pretty much what it was. The other episodes we've had with Sam are pretty good. Like I've listened to those and even our stuff. I mean, for the most part, I think what it was. The way I also view it too is like football when you're watching. You're breaking down an opponent. You're watching film. It's a great way to kind of have some introspection on what was going on and hopefully learn from it. So
yeah, I always look forward to the different viewpoints that people have, even if there's stuff that I've never thought about before in any capacity. And it's funny because I thought that we were all pretty evenly contributing to the Spider-Man discussions as a whole, compared to maybe some previous episodes that we've had, because I feel like me personally, I could have delivered a little bit more on the Godfather episode when we did that, mostly because I was just very tired, and I was thankful for Sam being present, not just because it's nice having him on, but because he was able to offer a lot in the way of carrying the conversation that I don't think I had the energy to do at that time. So there's just moments where I'm just like, okay, I just got to get through this. Not necessarily that I'm not enjoying it, but just, from a energy standpoint and a contribution standpoint, sometimes I feel like I don't have enough to contribute.
Yeah. It's sometimes there's a fog on clarity. It's like when you do these things, you always want to be clear of mind, ready to go, have your stuff ready. And then sometimes you just walk in and it's like, we'll see what happens.
I feel like that's kind of maybe how, at least for me, it's going to be, because I've seen Shawshank a few times, at least. I say a few, probably at least like 10 times or so. Green Mile, never seen before, and really didn't put away the time this weekend to look into or research either film. I only know very like base level, surface level knowledge of each movie. I can only offer like my viewpoints after I've seen it. So I guess we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I did. I watched the films, and then I usually hop on and try to Google some stuff or hop into IMDb to get some trivia on it. And I guess there's probably a little bit more on the Stephen King element that I was curious, not necessarily curious about. I mean, I think most of my questions were answered through what I read. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
You might have to help me out with some of the deeper context with these films. Speaking of Oscar-nominated movies.
Oh, yeah.
The Oscar nominations came out. Woo! Yippee! It's that time of year, Mac.
It is.
We get to talk about Oscar stuff again.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I genuinely am excited for the Oscar episode that we're going to do.
Dude, I think this is my favorite. It's got to be a staple episode.
I think it is.
Like I was talking to Jasmine, we were gonna go see one of the Oscar films that we'll be talking about eventually. And I was like, 2022. Remember like when we said we'd do it, and then we just crammed it all in there within like a week.
Yeah,
and saw
part of the fun was rushing to see movies that we hadn't seen.
Yeah,
in like a 3-week window.
And then I think last year, I want to say we've done this 3 times though.
This is our 3rd time.
This will be our 3rd time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because I thought we had another Oscar episode where we kind of talked about some of the films that we had seen, maybe not all of them, but I thought this would be the 3rd time. Mm-hmm. But I'm also feeling like when we were at the old house, we talked about Oscar films once, but
we did. That was episode 17, I believe. It was the year of the Will Smith slap. And we talked about, obviously this is kind of like traditionally how we do it now, but
episode 17 was when we crammed all that stuff in?
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you're right.
I think it was the episode after At Eternity's Gate.
Yeah.
So we did still talk about the 10 Best Picture nominees, and we managed to cram all those in. And then I think each of us were a little bit better prepared last year.
Oh, we actually got to see the films and let them soak in.
Yeah, we had more time to like kind of see them, and also we had already seen a good portion of them.
I think that's Belfast was the one that year that I gave I think like a 7, and then after we talked about it, I downgraded it to like a 3.
Yeah, that one I was not so fond of. But matter of fact, it's coming up again, and we've got the nominations that we can go through in anticipation for our Oscar episode whenever that comes around, whatever number that'll be. I'm not entirely sure exactly. I haven't done the math, but it'll be fun, and I can go through the nominations of which we know the best of. Not going to delve into the more niche ones that we're not familiar with, so I'll just keep it to the popular ones, I guess you could say. Best Picture. So we've got American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
Which I will throw this out there. I predicted 9 out of 10 of those, by the way. Feeling very proud of myself. The only one that I got wrong was American Fiction. I thought maybe they'd throw May December in there. The Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore film.
That's where I saw that from.
Yeah, but nope, American Fiction, which kind of surprised that they put that in there, but at the same time, I guess I'm not. I don't know. That's like really one of the only ones in this list that kind of surprises me that it snuck in there, especially after having seen it now.
Yeah, I think I'm halfway there. So
you've seen Killers, Oppenheimer, Maestro, Barbie, and now Zone of Interest.
Yep.
So you've got 5 to go.
Yep. Holdovers is on Peacock, I believe.
Okay. American Fiction and Poor Things, I think, are still in theaters.
Yeah, that's where it's going to get a time crunch.
Yeah. That'll...
Because if I don't see them in theaters, I'm not exactly sure. I have to spend $20 to rent them.
Yeah, that gets a little tricky.
So... We'll see.
Yeah. Best Director, we've got Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer, Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall.
Yeah.
Probably gonna give it to Nolan, I would wager. That's my guess. Unless they're really favorable to Poor Things, in which I feel like that's also going to take a lot of awards too. But
yeah,
I think Oppenheimer and Poor Things are like my top two that are gonna sweep a bunch of the awards.
I'm kind of curious about where they go this year with it, because I don't know. Oppenheimer's a strong film. We've talked about it. I just, you're talking about spanning time with this stuff. Mm-hmm. I feel like this year's a good year for movies, just not strong with movies that are going to be favorably remembered in 15 years.
Yeah, I could see that. Best Actress. So we've got Annette Bening for Naiad, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Huller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things. My vote is Lily Gladstone. That's who I think is going to win, and that's who I kind of want to win out of those. Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the same boat.
I think she did a great job.
Yeah.
Best Actor, Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. Having seen American Fiction, Jeffrey Wright is, I think, one of the best parts of that movie. Still think it's probably going to go to Cillian.
Same.
Yeah. Unless, my boy Giamatti strolls on up there, does this little Giamatti thing. That'd be epic. But I don't see that happening necessarily. But we'll see. I don't think they're going to give it to Cooper. I don't think the Academy, they like him enough to nominate him. It seems like they don't like him that much to let him have an award.
Well, and I don't know. I mean, I always get into, Cillian carried Oppenheimer. I mean, it's stunning and it's got enough of a story there. But I mean, he did a very fine job.
He did a lot of heavy lifting
in the film. So, if they've got all these nominations out and you've got the guy leading the film up for it, I've always gone under the notion you've got to give it to that guy unless. And I haven't seen Rustin or American Fiction yet, but I
can't even say I know what Rustin is. I'd not heard of that before these nominations came out. Best Supporting Actress, we've got Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Naiad, and Davine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. Interesting selection.
Yeah.
I feel like the only one that I would favorably lean towards is Emily Blunt. America Ferrera Barbie nomination is interesting, especially considering she's not in the movie that much. She's got like one big monologue, and then that's just kind of really her importance to the movie. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. None of that. It just sounds like a weak crew. And
yeah, I'm not like super. I mean, I haven't seen Color Purple or Naiad, but I'm not like super crazy about all these.
No, I got it. Naiad's now. I've heard 2 women nominated.
Jodie Foster and Annette Bening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's also a movie that I've heard like just mixed things about. Like people online are like, "Why is this nominated for anything?"
I'm telling you, I feel like this is an artsy year for film. I really do.
Just artsy stuff.
Nothing weird, just artsy stuff.
I think Emily Blunt's got it in the bag. That's my prediction.
but I didn't like her in Oppenheimer.
You weren't a fan?
No, I thought she was just. She had a little bit of range, but I don't. Some of those films, it's like you got to play one note. And I know she was trying to be strong throughout most of what was happening and being supportive, but like. Did she ever come across as jaded until like the truth really came out? Not to give too much away with Oppenheimer, but
yeah, I think she did a good enough job. It's just that movie is so cram-packed with so many things going on that I think it's hard to have that character have room to do a lot.
True.
So,
but that's what I'm saying too. Like then how do you give her the nomination if you're like...
I think I remember people talking about it when the movie came out, being like, oh, Emily Blunt, she's going to get Oscar noms in the bag for this. And, I mean, it looks like they were right.
Yeah.
I still think that they're probably going to give it to her. Best Supporting Actor, Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things.
Obviously, I gotta go with my boy Gosling.
That's who you want to win. That's who you want to see get the award.
Yeah.
I feel like they're probably going to give it to Downey Jr. Like I said, I feel like Oppenheimer's going to sweep a lot, especially the performance awards.
Yeah, which I guess. I don't know. I
mean, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I do really like all these picks. This is almost like the opposite of Best Actress for me, where like all these are very good selections.
See, that's I gotta see Poor Things and American Fiction to see Sterling K. Brown and Mark Ruffalo in their respective films. Before because I've only seen, I think, out of what you just read off, I've seen 2 films, and that's all I'm going off of. So
yeah, Sterling K. Brown, very good in the movie. I think he elevates it every time he appears on screen.
Yeah,
and Mark Ruffalo is awesome in Poor Things.
See, that's what I'm. Yeah, sometimes you just got to go with who the guys you want to see. If Gosling or Ruffalo win it, I probably won't be upset. Just because I like Mark Ruffalo.
I would not be upset really with, I think, any of these choices. The only one that I think I'd be like the least on is Robert De Niro, but again, he also did a really good job. So
he did, and you can't. Yeah,
it's a tough category. Best original screenplay, we got Justine Triet for and Arthur Harari for Anatomy of a Fall. Excuse me. David Hemmingson for The Holdovers, Bradley Cooper and Josh Singer for Maestro, Sammy Burke for Made December, and Celine Song for Past Lives. Made December gets a nom, finally, out of everything that we've read so far.
Oh, who's the director for that, too?
I could look it up real quick.
The guy's done some weird films.
Todd Haynes?
Yeah, it's a Todd Haynes film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked May December. Thought for sure it was going to get an Best Picture nom, but it did not. Yeah, I don't know. I think if if May December won, I'd be happy. I think if Past Lives won, I'd be happy. I'd be happy with a Holdovers win.
Let's just say if Maestro wins, we're not happy.
Yes. I would be upset.
The weakest part of that movie was the story.
Yeah.
And it got nominated.
Mm-hmm.
And this is original screenplay.
Yeah, this is original screenplay.
They took a guy's life and they're like, we'll just put it into a screenplay.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised about that, honestly, because like a few of these, I feel like the Academy is so stingy when it comes to like adapted versus original, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, this is based on something, therefore it's
There's
adapted.
Source material.
Yeah.
Right?
There's like something that this is inspired by, so you're adapting someone's life into a story, but I guess, I don't know, maybe they were hungry for original screenplay, so they just threw them in there.
Yeah.
The Maestro screenplay consists of Bradley Cooper walking around and saying random shit. Best adapted screenplay, we've got Cord Jefferson for American Fiction, Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach for Barbie, Tony McNamara for Poor Things, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, and Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest.
Well, I guess Oppenheimer, there's a book out that he pulled a lot of information from. Mm-hmm. Barbie, I feel like should be original.
I mean, yeah. The reason that they argue it's adapted is because they're adapting it from an IP, which, is a toy line. So I guess that's, constitutes adapted screenplay for some reason.
But Leonard Bernstein being a human and having several events and things that's happened in his life is original.
That is original enough for them, baby.
Yeah.
I don't know. The weakest one of this is probably American Fiction for me, but
yeah.
I don't see Barbie really getting it. Probably Oppenheimer, honestly. Oppenheimer's gonna take the reins on this. Best International Feature. So we got Io Capitano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, Society of the Snow from Spain, The Teacher's Lounge from Germany, and The Zone of Interest from the United Kingdom, which I've only seen 2 of these, Society of the Snow and The Zone of Interest.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah, I'd be curious what you think of that movie. I would like to see Zone of Interest get it, but if Society of the Snow gets it, I don't know, it's a big shoulder shrug from me. It's all right.
So you've seen it and liked it then.
I've seen it and I like it. I mean, I would love Zone of Interest winning this, but I guess we'll see what the Academy favors in this category. Best animated feature, we got The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Probably got to go with Spider-Man.
I
haven't seen it.
I would love The Boy and the Heron to win. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave it to Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Just because that movie was so big, especially at the beginning of the year. Like, it was one of the first movies people were like, oh, this is like the best movie of 2023 so far.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Robot Dreams made it in.
Yeah. We saw a preview for that at Zone of Interest. It looks interesting.
It does.
I wouldn't mind just checking it out casually. Do we need to go over Best Documentary Feature?
I think there's 23 categories, so whenever you're good, I think we touched on the big ones. Maybe cinematography.
I was going to say, that was the next one.
Okay. And I don't know. So they got sound design and sound editing. I wish that was just one. If that was one, I'd say do it.
I'll go over these a little quicker. Best cinematography: El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. I feel like I would love a Poor Things win.
Interesting.
But we'll see. I think that one's got a good chance of getting it. Best editing: Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. I feel like they'd give it to Oppenheimer, but I'd like to see Anatomy of a Fall win it. I do like the editing in that. There's a lot of like good editing work in that movie. Not a lot. It's very subtle, but I liked it well enough.
When it comes to editing, they look at obviously scene logistics, pacing, and continuity.
Yes.
Like, I've never read up on, it's not necessarily, I mean, it could be the criteria, but kind of, the big concepts that you want to hit on. I mean, would those three fall into that? How well the story goes?
I would say so. My only issue is that the Academy sometimes looks at these categories and says what had the most editing, not necessarily what had the best editing.
Yeah.
Which is why sometimes they give it to movies like fucking Bohemian Rhapsody, where like the editing in that movie is atrocious, but they gave it to it.
What do you mean? Nominated, not won, right?
No, it won. Bohemian Rhapsody won Best Editing the year it came out.
I gotta see that movie. That's got 2 Oscar winners in it.
Yeah. Did Rami win it for playing old Freddy? I don't remember exactly. I remember the editing thing and how much it pissed me off.
He gave his speech, and he was talking about being from Egyptian, right? Yeah. And his heritage and how he's adapted, and they started playing him off. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is a bad look.
Oh. Yeah. We need to be more inclusive. All right, get this fucking minority off stage.
Yeah. You've already said your piece. Thank you.
So long-winded. Jesus. So yeah, that's best editing. Like to see Anatomy of a Fall. Best costume design, we got Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. I think Poor Things should get that 100%. Mm-hmm. Just all around, just a visually stunning movie, costumes included. Best hair and makeup, Golda, never heard of that. Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Society of the Snow. Again, probably Poor Things. I'm partial to that one. But I wouldn't necessarily be that upset over a Maestro win. I did like the makeup in that movie, the old age stuff. Best sound, we got The Creator, Maestro, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, and The Zone of Interest.
What one is this?
Best sound. I would be okay with either Oppenheimer or Zone of Interest.
That was I really like the sound design in Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
I thought it was well done.
It's very well crafted in that film.
Yeah. And it's used as a
it's like a storytelling technique.
Exactly.
Environmental storytelling.
Yes.
Best visual effects, we've got The Creator, Godzilla -1.
The Creator?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, if you're going to give that movie anything...
No, you don't need to give it anything. That's where your sentence was already fucked up when you started that. But yeah,
you have to admit the best part of that movie is the visuals.
The only good part of that movie is
yes. Yes, I don't entirely disagree with you.
Yeah, because you don't remember it.
That's true. So anyway, creator Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is on here for some reason. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, and then Napoleon. I think this is the only. Oh no, the next one. Napoleon has a nomination.
I Godzilla -1.
Yeah, same.
Have you seen that yet?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Really?
Yeah, I think that movie's very impressive. I had some issues with it, but
I'm sure storytelling or acting or
more just like general pacing. But
I could see that
the visuals were really great, especially when you think about the budget of that movie. It's even less than the creator.
Yes.
I would love Godzilla -1 to win that.
Same.
I'd be rooting for it.
Yep. And it's a Godzilla film, so.
Big Lizard, Destroy Things. Best production design: Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. I feel like if Barbie definitely should win something, it's probably production design, right?
I don't know. Napoleon was pretty fantastic in that.
Napoleon was good. Honestly, like most all of these movies had really good production design.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sad about any of them.
I was about to say, I got to see Poor Things, but I thought Napoleon, I remember like watching Napoleon and thinking, man, this is impressive just with this feat alone. Everything else, but
yeah,
I mean, take Waterloo for example. Them being out there with the extras and
it's impressive.
Yeah,
it's very impressive.
Yeah.
Best original song, we've got "What Was I Made For," Billie Eilish and Phineas from Barbie. "I'm Just Ken," Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt from Barbie. "The Fire Inside," Diane Warren, Flamin' Hot. I think that's the Cheeto movie.
It is.
That's weird. "It Never Went Away," John Batiste, American Symphony, and "Wazazi," A Song for My People, Osage Tribal Singers, Killers of the Flower Moon.
John Batiste was part of that?
John Batiste. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm not entirely sure who that is. Sounds like you know more than me. I'm
fairly certain he's the guy that he was Stephen Colbert on the Colbert Show.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure John Batiste was his piano. He did the music on the show.
Oh.
And he
just kept him with him that whole time?
Dude, I don't know how John Batiste kind of has blown up. I don't know if the Colbert Show helped him out because that kind of got big. Within last probably 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that really helped him, but he's been on a couple sound or music teams for some of these films.
Okay.
But you said he was part. Is that Killers of the Flower Moon? He was.
No, for American Symphony.
Okay, that's what.
Yeah.
I thought because I was talking to Sam. Sam said that the band, the name of the music group, their lead singer and bassist or guitarist was helping out Scorsese with Killers of the Flower Moon score.
Interesting.
Before he passed away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like if any of these win, it's probably going to be "I'm Just Ken," right? That was the most popular song probably out of all of these.
Well, it's hard to say with the Academy because you want to go with what was most fun and culturally relevant, and then they go, well, who forked up the most money, so here you go, Hulu.
Yeah. I don't know. I still think it's going to be "I'm Just Ken," but
yeah. Well,
we'll find out.
That's what we're pulling for, right?
Yeah.
Like we're both in the same boat. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that win.
Same. Best original score: American Fiction, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Come on.
I know, right? Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. Really, Indy, what are you doing? Yeah, original score. Which I think it's. I mean, John Williams did it, so maybe that's why they're throwing it in there.
Man, fucking he must have old Spielberg big time.
But boy, oh boy,
John Williams, Star Wars, John Williams.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
Harry Potter, John Williams. Jaws, John Williams.
That John Williams.
That John Williams.
Damn, dude, 60 years still going at it.
I know they had to de-age him so they could use him for the score. It's crazy. American Fiction had a fine score. I wasn't like hugely impressed by it. Killers, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. I think one of those has it in the bag.
What would make you more upset? If Indiana Jones wins this year or when Bohemian won for editing?
The Bohemian editing one is so egregious because it's so like. At least you could maybe argue Dial of Destiny. It's like, oh, it's a tribute of John Williams' music.
That's the film you pick?
The Bohemian Rhapsody editing choice is so fucking bizarre to me. I don't understand that one to this day.
Yeah.
Live action short, we don't know any of those. Animated short, we don't know any of those. And then documentary short, we don't know any of those. So
there we go.
There we go.
Okay.
That's it. What do we think is going to win Best Picture? Because I think when we do our Oscar episode, it's after the awards are done. So we can make our predictions here.
Yeah. The problem is I haven't seen, I've got 5 out of 10 under my bag. So,
right.
If I was going off of what I've seen thus far, yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Because I'm leaning towards Oppenheimer, but I feel like I said, this year I think it's like it's strong for movies that have come out and that are interesting that we can talk about, culturally relevant in the next 15 years. I don't know, and I feel like Oppenheimer and Barbie are going to be the only two that have any sort of long withstanding remembrance.
Yeah.
So I'd say Oppenheimer, but honestly, I don't want to see that win.
What would you want to see win out of the ones you've seen so far?
That I've seen thus far? That's a tough one. It really is, because none of them I've seen I think are going to have any long withstanding impact for me, and that's usually how if I was a judge.
Okay.
Now, I mean, artistically done. Storyline, it's between Flowers and Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And I like Killers of the Flower Moon, but it's the same. It's just such a heavy subject matter, and I'm gonna go with that one. I'm gonna go with Killers just because I'd like to see Scorsese win, and it's got a lot of actors that I like in it. And in terms of all the stories that I've seen with this stuff, they all kind of get washed. Barbie's another one too. I thought Barbie was really creatively done.
Yeah.
But I just think it's going to be too fun and too poppy.
I feel like Barbie is the Top Gun nomination for this year.
Yeah.
Where it's really popular. A lot of like critics and audiences like it, but I feel like it's the popular pick that they threw in there.
But you got to give Barbie, I guess I'd say a little bit more credit, but Top Gun in its own right is equally impressive. Where Barbie, you have the story writing or the screenwriting, and Top Gun visually with the sound effects, sound design, and some of the cinematography going on.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like it knocks it out of the ballpark in that aspect, but like in terms of a film as a whole, and Barbie's good. Don't get me wrong, but I mean it's kind of static shots. Some of it was good. Pacing was good. I mean the movie as a whole. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, you know what? I will say I'm going to go with Barbie. I'm going to say if I had to see one win, this is the one that I probably had the most fun with.
Okay.
And that's to be. I could see these next 5 films and then have a completely different opinion.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out when we come back to it. I think Oppenheimer's going to take it. What I would like to see win, I would be very pleasantly happy of a Holdovers win.
Ooh, there we go. I can't wait to watch this.
I'm excited for you to watch it.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have fun with it, but I don't want to set expectations for you, so
I've already
just leave it there.
What was funny, not to get into like any, long-winded stories or anything, but I was going through my IMDb, and I think it's right before we started texting about seeing these things, and for some reason I saw someone was checking out whatever movie, so I hopped into IMDb and I started reading up, and I got into Zone of Interest. And I read that and I was like, I'm going to add this to the watch list. And then the next one's down popped up, and I don't know. I don't think the nominations were out, or if they might have been out, but I hadn't seen any. So Past Lives popped up, read that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, And then Anatomy of a Fall popped up, and I added. So I've actually, general curiosity, have had these 5 films on my watch list to, check out at some point during the tenure of this. So Holdovers was already on it though. So expectations, all my expectations are I think I'm going to enjoy these films until I watch them, and I don't enjoy them.
That's the right mindset to have. Keep those expectations realistic. Speaking of realistic, it's realistic if you commit a crime that you go to prison.
Actually, both these films,
right? I was gonna say we could segue into either one. So, do you have a preference of which one we talk about first?
Well, I would say, what one would you like to read off?
I think I would like to read off Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
So if that's the one we want to go with first, then
sure. We can do Shawshank.
Okay, that's the one I'm most familiar with too.
Perfect.
So, I can summate this once we dive into The Shawshank Redemption, which is directed by Frank Darabont, based off of a Stephen King novella titled Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption. Follows Andy Dufresne, played by Tim Robbins, who is imprisoned for the murder of his wife and his wife's lover. He finds himself in Shawshank Prison, where he meets a few colorful characters, the most notable of them being Ellis Boyd Redding, played by Morgan Freeman, who is also in prison for a murder sentence. And it kind of follows Andy through his journey, kind of from the perspective of Red as the story's being narrated by him throughout the film. And you kind of just follow his journey through Shawshank Prison and his life and his interactions with the warden, the prison guards, and establishing a library and kind of making a name for himself in order to seek redemption within Shawshank Prison. That's where the title comes in. So this is a movie I kind of wanted to discuss, partially because I wanted one of my recommendations to be more of a classic film that I think a lot of people really like and cherish.
Yeah.
One that it almost kind of has like that Forrest Gump status of, oh, people view this movie as like one of the best movies ever made.
Interesting about Forrest Gump.
Yeah, right. It kind of has that similar status of like, oh,
I think they all came out. That came out in the same year,
right? It general same time frame.
And Pulp Fiction.
I feel like if you ask a certain demographic, what is your favorite movie or what do you think is the best movie, I feel like a good portion of those people will say The Shawshank Redemption. Mm-hmm. It has one of those statuses, and I think it's the #1 movie on IMDb. It's got like a 9.3 or something. It's very up there. At least it was for a while.
Yes.
And this is a movie I'd seen countless times. I don't even know exactly how many times I'd watched it, so I was very familiar with it already. And I was curious on a rewatch how I'd feel about it, just viewing it from this lens, because it's been a while. It's been a long time since I'd seen it, probably like 5 or 6 years. And rewatching it, I think it really does hold up. Mm-hmm. Do I think it's the best movie ever made? I don't think so, but there's a lot to really like and appreciate about it, not only from a storytelling level, but from a technical level, a filmmaking level, and an acting level as well. And I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no. This is this is a wholesome movie. You know?
Yes.
Incredibly wholesome. And one of the things that it's always been for me, like on a bubble a little bit, never kind of embraced the relationship that Red and Andy had. It's funny because I watched Wayne's World. I don't know if you've ever seen Wayne's World.
No, I haven't.
There's a line in there at one time that this guy says, and they're all talking. And he goes, and I've realized that platonic love can exist between two men. Mm-hmm. And I actually watched Wayne's World before I watched this, and watching that thing, I was like, holy, like this is the ultimate portrayal of a friendship. Mm-hmm. You know? It's a really wholesome movie. It's well done. And we can get into it. This is probably the closest, actually, I mean, both films we're going to talk about, and they've been adapted off books, but one of the closest movies that I've seen that I feel like a portrayal of a book. Yeah. Where there are creative liberties taken, but for most of it holds true to the source material.
Yeah, it gets kind of the spirit of what the novella is offering.
Yes.
It does have that, like, Stephen King feel to it, too. Like, I think a lot of his movies have. Not just, like, you know, I hope I'm not being, like, obtuse when I say that, but you like my use of the word obtuse?
Yeah.
Incorporating it from the movie?
Yep.
But what I mean by that is, like, it kind of has sort of a whimsical feel to it, mm-hmm. with, like, some darker elements thrown in. I mean, you get movies like The Shining or Misery, where, like, a little more darkness to them, a little bit more edge to those stories. And then you get movies like Silver Bullet, where it's like, yeah, it's kind of a horror movie, but it's also super campy.
Yep.
I think this one has a good amount of camp in it, but without sacrificing what the sort of integrity of the film and the story's going for.
Right.
It doesn't feel like too much to me.
No, I agree. I think it's the right amount, and it's also because of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a funny one when you think about it, because it's based around murder, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we get to see plenty of it. Well, not plenty of it, but we get to see the elements of that strewn into the film.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's like money laundering going on. There's tax evasion. We're talking pretty much slavery.
There's sexual assault happening.
Yeah, and it's so funny when you watch this thing, because you never feel in like sort of peril of what's going on, and mostly it's just because it's Fred. It's my turtle. It's Red looking back on the friendship that he had with Andy. So he's choosing to go over the colorful moments, if you will, of what happened in Shawshank versus, and they kind of they put you in that light so you can understand that this isn't all roses and butterflies.
Yeah.
There are some real life aspects going on, but we don't have to sit here and really, get gratuitous behind what you need to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's played out just enough for you to get the general vibe that you have to be on edge just a little bit, but they take care of you as the viewer without putting you in any sort of tension or tension-y filled moments. And it's not to say they're low stakes with what's happening, but given that he's in prison for life, it's like, how much worse can it get? So those moments of tension usually earn it, but it never stresses you out.
Yeah. Like you get your proper amounts of highs and lows, and you get your really dark moments too, which is something that I've really noticed on this viewing specifically, is that there are a lot of dark moments in it, like the sexual assault and like the murders going on.
Brooks. Brooks is a touching tale.
Brooks, yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that like people think back on this movie and they're like, oh, I'm so sad about Brooks and everything. Like it hits emotional points all over the place. And I think that's why a lot of people resonate with this movie too. It's got like darkness in it, but it's also got an earnestness to it that I think some Stephen King adaptations also have.
Oh, I agree. I think Stephen King's a great, fantastic writer, right? And I think that it's funny that you can see his range as a writer, because some people have like that one note, or I can make Michael Crichton with genetically mutating things and make it super thrilling and sci-fi and maybe not sci-fi but entertaining, and pose a couple philosophical questions here and there. Where with this one, with Stephen King, I mean, in this alone, there's a lot of themes in the book of higher concepts, in the movie, I should say, of higher concepts that play out with just living in this micro community inside the prison.
Yeah,
and it's well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Endurance, crawling through shit, all those higher concepts that we're familiar with. And I'm kind of joking, but I'm also agreeing with you in that, like, it is like a quaint personal look at this character and like these characters, and like you said, low stakes, but it presents it in such a grand way of making you think about concepts of hope and how hope is a dangerous thing. And, the way they talk about these things kind of abstract, makes it seem like it's bigger than it might actually be,
A little bit. I'm trying to think bigger than it might actually be.
Like you said, the stakes are small and personal, but the way it's presented in this movie is very grand scale.
Yes. Well, and you're going off. I mean, you're looking at one man's life, and he's been thrust into a situation unfavorable as is, and it plays up to the human. The other one we're going to talk about, I think it's a little bit more dealing with, or this one, I had a great, difference inside my head, and I'm trying to think of what one. I mean, this plays up to the human spirit a little bit more and what we're capable of, and what exactly we're able to do given unfavorable circumstances. Yeah, and this one does a great job of really having Andy persevere through all this, part of the fun shit. That he's going through and making the best of it, and how infectious it can be for other people too. I think that's why a lot of people like this film as well, is because he's not just taking care of himself. Whereas everyone in that prison, when you first get there, they're all looking out for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, you get a guy that comes in and he is actually looking out for the betterment of his fellow, prison mates.
Mm-hmm.
And it just infects you with, all right, well, how do we make the best of a bad situation?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that something that I really appreciated this time, in this viewing, was just how much happens in this movie. There's so much that goes on in a movie that is not even like the longest. I mean, we're going to talk about a movie that's longer than this, but
this is 2 hours 20 minutes, I think.
2 hours 20 minutes, but I mean, especially compared to like more recent films that we've been getting, it's like, oh, this is a pretty like, it's long, but I don't think it's like long-winded. I don't think it overstays its welcome.
It's well paced.
It's very well paced.
Yeah,
and it goes down super smooth. One thing I was worried about was like, oh, I've seen this so many times. How much of this is going to be so familiar and a slog to me? But it still hits as fresh and as nicely paced as it was before.
Oh yeah, no, I couldn't agree more on that. I mean, this one goes down pretty smooth. It holds up. I mean, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's some of those films you're put on sets and stuff like that. They look a little outdated, but
yeah.
I get they're going back to what 1935. I want to say.
I think it's 1935 is the Green Mile.
Okay, so
49 I think is when Andy gets arrested.
Yes, yeah. So you're able to step back in time, which always helps out films if they're made 30 years prior to this. 27.
Yeah, so I think this was 94. So 20. I mean.
Almost
29
years. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Same year I was born, so that's easy to figure out, I guess.
Yeah. But no, it's really well. I mean, and they break up events as they lead on with the story too. Mm-hmm. And they get to highlight these pockets in time at Shawshank with how Andy changed, these men as they're going through this I don't want to call it a bout with prison, but being incarcerated.
Yeah. Normally, I would be pretty annoyed at something like narration throughout an entire movie. But I mean, one, it's Morgan Freeman. So his voice it just lends itself to narration.
He found his calling.
I know, right? He did what he found was good, that he was good at, and, stuck with it. But also, too, especially with this being based off of a Stephen King written piece of material, I think it does lend itself to that narration, and it offers you not only a perspective of like what Andy's going through, but Red as a character also.
Yeah,
like you get to learn about both of them simultaneously through these pieces of dialogue that he's delivering, and it doesn't feel ham-fisted or forced or super exposition heavy. It feels like you're getting this perspective from this character, but it's also kind of like feeding you the information that you need.
Yes,
kind of a greater context of what's going on.
Darabont, when he won, so he bought this from Stephen King. He bought the rights to adapt this book for $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen King actually he didn't cash the check. He framed it on his wall.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was just like, but Darabont adapted one of his like original or novellas, like very whatever. I can't remember exactly what it's called. And Stephen King was like, if anyone's gonna ever direct one of my films, because he doesn't like how any of his films are ever made. I mean, he ended up fucking making his own film. He was so pissed off with how people.
Yeah, he hated Stanley Kubrick and the way he directed The Shining. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then I think just everyone else from there. He was always a producer or on set to help out because sometimes it just doesn't translate that well. So, anyways,
Maximum Overdrive, baby.
Yeah, I'll show you what it's supposed to be. So, anyways, him and Darabont, he always said he wanted Darabont to do it. So Darabont bought the screenplay from him. And while Darabont was writing it, coming out with his own script, he was watching Goodfellas, and he loved how Henry Hill in Goodfellas, Ray Liotta, how they had the narration play over what was happening to help the audience members keep ushering them along without having needless exposition or trying to feel like you're not necessarily dumbing them down. I think narration can be tastefully done.
I think it can too. I feel like for some reason I'm a little more partial towards it when it's a period piece too. If it's something a little more modern or like futuristic or sci-fi, it gets a little I feel like. But I don't know, for some reason there's just like because I enjoy it in this movie, and I don't mind it in Devil All the Time, which is like another period piece film. I don't know. There's just something about that I think lends itself to narration as well. It kind of feels a little more old timey that way.
I agree. I definitely think that it there's kind of a, there's maybe not high risk, high reward, but I also feel like the narration can be bad too, because sometimes it dumbs it down
right
for the
if
audience.
It's used improperly.
Yeah, and that's when I get annoyed with it. So I always feel like if you have it in the film, it's either hit or miss.
Yeah.
I think if you look back on films and someone were to bring it up, and you're going to remember if it was narrated well or not.
Yeah, the presentation has so much to do with it, because if you think about Spider-Man, and if that movie was narrated throughout the whole thing, how Tobey Maguire was doing it, boy, oh boy.
Oh my God.
That would have dragged it down so bad.
No, I can't. I'm very happy that in the second one, they just is like, quick cut, let's just get you in there, we'll explain just in case, and we're good.
Well, I don't think Harry knew that I was on my way to tell him that I wanted MJ back, but I had to be the one to do it. It's like, Jesus Christ, no.
A darker Spider-Man with him narrating it would be great. It also is interesting too to me, and I, watching some films recently with that narration, we were going through Red's perspective on everything happening. Not to say he's not an unreliable narrator. It's just funny that we're seeing everything being portrayed of what's going on with Andy, but it's all through Red's perspective of how it happened.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting viewpoint on the film to take as, it is all, do we hold all of these events as true?
Yeah.
But it also plays into with Red doing the narration that he is recollecting these events. So we have to trust him with what he's telling us, and I think at that point, if it's not needless to have it done, it does help out with what's going on, because Goodfellas does the same thing, and you're going through these events with the narrator explaining kind of what's going on, but it's not done in a way to usher you along.
Yeah, I get what you mean, because also too, when you watch Goodfellas and you're following Henry Hill, I mean, no spoilers for Goodfellas.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're following him and you're getting his narration, and he's also like kind of the main character, but then there's also Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro, and you're getting a greater sense of like how the operation works through those other characters through Henry Hill's eyes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the same thing where like Andy Dufresne is the character we're focused on, but Red is the character whose eyes we're seeing that focus through.
Yeah.
And I really like that approach to it. It grounds the movie so much for me.
I would agree. And some of the actions or some of the events that take place with Andy, it feels more plausible, as if you were watching them actually happen in real time, or if we were going through, let's say Andy narrated this thing,
Yeah.
it'd be probably a little bit weirder.
I also really like to, and there's another movie that kind of does this as well, that I watched recently that I really enjoyed. I don't even know if I should say it, but I like how this film doesn't really tell you that Andy's innocent until you kind of find out halfway through.
See, I had that. Oh my! I wish I had that question lined up too. And then I forgot that if the guy comes in and kind of vouches for him, I always thought it was like, yeah, no, I thought I heard something, and I wanted to pose the question of, would we have believed Andy as innocent had they not brought in the younger character explaining that he's innocent? I think it's an interesting point as you watch this man, and it's like you're almost passing judgment, which kind of plays up into some of the religious themes in this film. We're almost passing judgment on Andy because he claims he's innocent. He would certainly have the pedigree and the character of being an innocent man, but does it just take the one night of passion to fuck all that up?
Right.
And I kind of wish they didn't have that kid that played that part. Not to say that what he did, but take him out for another reason, or just have him get out of Shawshank. You know?
I understand that perspective entirely, and I am a fan of that idea that you don't entirely know if he's innocent or not. I think that for the goals of the narrative and what they wanted to do, I think it is important for you to at least get the sense that he's innocent.
Well, you do, don't you?
You do. And maybe they could have gone about it in a more subtle way, but I kind of see their perspective of, we need to hammer home the fact that he's innocent, so that way everything that happens afterwards is way more tragic. It's way more effective that way. There was a reason that there's a way he could have gotten out. He had a way to, if it was any other warden or if it was any other situation, he could have possibly left Shawshank Prison and, absolved of any crime that he was accused of. But because of the situation, it makes it all the more tragic that way.
Yeah, and I thought about that too, because it's like, I guess I wish there was a little bit more of a lingering doubt in your head.
Yeah.
I think that would have made it just as impactful. Now, let's say that kid comes in there and he goes, I just don't know. But I bet you if we found him, we could ask. Mm-hmm. And then the warden has to do all that rather than saying, I know for sure. It probably still holds the same weight, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because all of us are rooting for Andy at this point. We all think he's innocent. Mm-hmm. There is a little bit of that. I mean, I don't know if you had to do it, but when the movie, as it's going along, I would have to remind myself, like, oh yeah, he's here because of this, because he's a fish out of water.
Yeah, I found myself especially doing that for some of the side characters too, because you never exactly know what some of them are in for, like William Sadler or any other side character that you see.
Well, they're all innocent.
They're all innocent. Yeah, exactly. Lawyer fucked them. But that is one of those things too, where like, oh, he's friends with these people, but one of them could have been like a fucking like double homicide convict. I don't know.
Brad was kind of close to it.
Right, yeah.
But that's where it's me, like what we talked about, campy, right? And that's where this kind of, to me, when it starts to come off as campy, it's a lot of those notions, or we're going to muddle through some of the details because we don't want to make it too dark.
Right.
Which it well done, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same token, I think that's where some of this movie kind of plays up into we got to make it a little softer so this relation feels a little bit more genuine, because you don't want to be constantly reminded that you're in prison either, which,
right.
Directorial choice too, perhaps, of every once in a while we got to remind you, hey, this isn't, these guys aren't free, even though this is probably as free as they've ever felt.
Right. Even though like they're happy in this scene and they're having a good time, it's like they're still locked up.
Yeah.
They still, at the end of the day, have to go back to like a 7 foot by 7 foot cell.
And I think one of the more jolting scenes is actually when he calls the warden obtuse.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as you're going through the story with Andy, you really feel more comfortable with where he's at, and it almost feels like
it gives you like a false sense of security.
Yeah, exactly. And then that scene is like, boom, here we go. Hey,
it's like everything turns against him so fast.
Yeah, I'm in fucking control here. Like, we aren't buddies.
Yeah, because like the way it happens too is so organic in that like he works at like gradually garnering favor with the guards, and then he garners favor with the warden, and then he's able to have like more of these like favors and freedoms and things that he can do towards like fixing up the library and like getting drinks for his friends. Like, it's just these little things that like you kind of get used to, because at the beginning you're shown, oh, he's getting locked up, this is a shitty ass place, they'll fucking kill you if you cry out in the middle of the night,
they'll rape you.
Yeah, exactly. But then those false senses of security come in and you're like, oh, okay, I feel good about this. This is a decent story. They're just having an okay time. I mean, sure, they're in prison, but like they're making the best of it. And then the warden just flips on a dime just like that, it all goes to shit again.
And it's funny too. I didn't realize it was so close to the end of the film. Like this movie was moving so well for me that all of a sudden that happened. I was like, we're up against the time.
Yeah,
like, this is it. This is coming down. I can't believe that this is happening so fast. And that's another. It's a great. I mean, pretty much climax, I would say, are pretty damn close. Obviously, you've got the following events, but no, I shouldn't say it that. It's a great point right before you reach the summit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That like really halting wall of conflict that you have to get through.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well paced. I would say well acted. I know you and Sam have had some interesting perspectives on Tim Robbins as an actor. What'd you think about him in this movie?
I think we talked about it in the last one, or I think it was War of the Worlds.
I think it was War of the Worlds, yeah.
I really listened to that. Sam's got such a big beef with Tim Robbins. He always plays a very dopey character, if you will. Yeah. He's always he's got a funny look to his face when he gets quizzical. Mm-hmm. It makes him seem a little slow. His range is like that far. and for everyone,
he's holding out like basically
ruler.
2 feet of space in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, and he plays. I don't know if he ever really plays a leading man. I mean, he in this one he shares it with Morgan Freeman.
Yeah,
Jacob's
Ladder would probably be the closest I can think of. And even that is like very tailored to the type of character he plays.
Yeah. So I've nenever been big or for or against Tim Robbins. Sam hates the dude, and whatever. But I think, like we talked about in this one, though, it's well within his range.
Yeah, it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that if you fit into a certain slot, he can really do well.
Yeah, like work with a certain director, certain character that's written for him.
Sam would, if this were wrestling, and I'm now learning some more of this stuff too as we talked about it. I honestly, when I was hearing jobber, I'm not gonna lie, I was just thinking about like an extra, that would come in to get his ass kicked. No, it's someone that's trying to ascent their name, and Tim Robbins is like Yokozuna. I don't know if anyone's ever familiar with Yokozuna, but he's and Sam will probably argue with me on this shit too, so great. But he had kind of like a one shtick appeal, a big guy. Now he was athletic, but in terms of what he could do in the mat, like limited. Right now, when it came down to some of the big events that he had to knock out of the park, he absolutely did because they played into his style. But when it came into some of the other things, if they were going to challenge him or say we need you to do this or do that, he wasn't able to. So kind of not necessarily a one-trick pony. But if like I'm saying about Tim Robbins, if you put him in the right role, and I think this is a perfectly cast role for him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do too much with his eyes. He doesn't have to do too much with building up tension, showing empathy, showing sympathy. A lot of it is he's a loner that is just trying to find his way through life in this prison, and he's smarter than everyone else there.
Yeah.
He obviously knows he's been incarcerated for the wrong reasons, so now he's got to play up into everything's going to be fine. So I mean, throughout the whole film, I don't know if I've ever, the only time, and like I said, the only time I ever really felt impacted was the scene with the warden. I mean, that's about the only time that you really feel like he kind of breaks.
Yeah. I think he does a good job in this, in that he's effectively making you feel sorry for him. And I think that that's kind of where he does well, is when he plays characters that you kind of feel bad for.
Because he's dopey.
Well, because he's dopey, and like, he kind of has that sort of like meek, nerdy quality to him.
The real Tommy McGuire feel.
Kinda. He's an underdog. Yeah. You cast him as an underdog and you play to his strengths. And I think that, where you go wrong with it is trying to make him play like some fucking psychopath in War of the Worlds. Whereas,
or a swanky guy in The Player.
I haven't seen that. I can't vouch for it.
That's when Sam fucking rattled off some of the longest text messages I've ever read.
Yeah, because when I look at Tim Robbins, I think swanky.
Yeah.
Suave individual.
Yeah.
But, like a Jacob's Ladder or like Shawshank Redemption, where you have him play someone who is, he's down on his luck. Mm-hmm. And you feel bad for him. And that's where the sympathy comes from.
Yeah.
And then you got more of a grounded character like Red, who is not necessarily in control of the situation, but knows how to navigate it.
He's a hustler.
He's a hustler, and he can kind of like be your way of saying like, oh, okay, like no matter what happens, at least Red is in control. Yeah. You feel the wise old man. You Yeah. I also like too, and this is something I was going to bring up when we were talking about not mentioning like what all the guys are in for, like, trying to make you kind of sympathize with criminals in movies like this. They make it a point in this film to say that, these guys, they've been in here, some of them have been there so long that like they're not even the same person. Mm-hmm. There's an argument to be made not only in film but just in life in general, where you lock someone up for so long and you take away all that they have to call their identity. It's like, are they even that same person that they came in as they might be getting out of?
Yeah.
When Brooks leaves, he talks about in the letter like how he had only seen an automobile one time and now they're everywhere. It's like the world got itself into a big damn hurry. He's not the same as it was before.
Yeah.
Like he's a totally changed individual. So I don't know, it kind of speaks a little bit to not only like the narrative but also just the concept of locking someone up away for a long time.
It's a human spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not to cut you off.
No, you're good.
But that's what I was kind of hinting towards, was that the human spirit. You know, you take someone's soul out from them, and is there anything left? And it's, you look at, like, I was talking with some higher concepts or some themes of the film. I mean, institutionalization. That's one of them, being removing someone from their environment and putting them in isolation, with, you know, gray walls everywhere, surrounded doing the same thing. You become routine. Do you become a machine? Do you still have some of those features that you once had before? Mm-hmm. You know, and that's one of the things that they talk on, you know, in this film, is looking at that. And I think somewhere I read that there's an argument that someone said that Andy Dufresne was a metaphor for Jesus, you know, as he's coming in with his disciples and leading people.
I feel like that's more appropriate for the next film we'll discuss, but sure.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it depends on how you kind of look at it, but I mean, the word of the message of his word and how he led.
But yeah, I get like his group of friends was kind of like his disciples almost, in a way.
Yeah, and when they took under his preaching, and you know, you look at that and you put yourself in pretty much like a very early man stage. You know, not to say that, I mean, they're removed of technology. Mm-hmm. They have their caves, they have their huts, they're fed, right? And they go about their day working and providing to get back to their huts. Yeah. You know, and my point being is that, you know, the human spirit with this, and with what Andy represents and how he goes about his business, is very it bleeds through the film, you know. And I don't know if at any one point you ever felt hopeless, maybe until the very end there, like we said with the warden. I mean, I think he had never been broken in the film, mm-hmm. you know, with all the shit that he had to go through before the shit. Never really once did you feel like the sisters, you never felt like they got to him. You know, even though they did what they did, mm-hmm. you know, you never really felt that was too much for him to handle. Everything going on with the warden, with Brooks, the library. I mean, he kept everything so well and for so long that it really resonates with. You take a place like a prison, and you have these people. All of a sudden, you're going through, and you kind of lose sight, like you said, false sense of security with what's going on. You know, it's a testament to what he's doing. And, I mean, it's a testament to how Tim Robbins played the character. But I also think, too, Stephen King wrote it, and Darabont really pulled from that. Yeah. And it shined, though, you know.
I think so. Well, we're not talking about Shining. We're talking about Shawshank Redemption, which we can kind of touch on, too. How do we feel about this compared to other Stephen King adaptations? Because I feel like my favorite would probably be The Shining. Mm-hmm. This is definitely up there for me in terms of all the movies I've seen. You know, sorry that Silver Bullet isn't number one, Mac, but it's got a spot for sure.
Graphic novel that they knocked out of the ballpark.
Oh yes,
yeah, all right.
Forgive me.
Like, don't you dare!
How could I speak so ill,
Reverend?
He tore him to pieces.
Has anyone seen my boy
Brady?
Brady.
Yeah. That's the real tragedy. Kid's name is Brady.
Hey, Private Justice,
I'm just kidding. I have a friend named Brady. Shout out to Brady.
Yeah. Brady. No, I always have a hard time because for me it's how well do I think they adapted it and how much of this portrays the book. Like I hate to say it, but for me the testament of a good like adaptation is either I like the movie more or it makes me want to read the book. Yeah, and I think this one actually does that though. So I would say this is one of the better ones.
For sure.
You know, and there's so much out there, so I can't go too much into depth on it because I think I've only seen about 5 or 6 of his films that have been adapted. So
yeah, there's a lot of them too.
There's a lot,
and they all range in quality. Yeah, that's for sure.
I do want to see Dr. Sleep again.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, I've seen that one. I've seen it once, but once again, it was kind of like, a movie's on. So now that I'm actually kind of paying attention with some of the story and character development, I've grown much more of an appreciation for watching these films.
That'd be an interesting double feature with The Shining, possibly.
Ooh, that's a one-day. Yeah.
We'll see what the future holds.
Yeah. But anyway, what about you? What I don't know if you're in the same boat.
This is definitely up there. I think when I think about a good adaptation, I think it's kind of a similar line where you're at. I think for me personally, it has a lot to do with, does it retain a lot of what makes the book notable while still adjusting it properly for the medium that it's being portrayed by? So, like, for example, you could take a book and adapt it into a movie one for one.
Polar.
And polar, I guess. No, but like you could adapt it one to one, and the movie version would suffer because of it, because they weren't thinking of it as a movie when they were writing the book. They were thinking of it as a book.
Yeah.
So you like inevitably have to make those adjustments in order for it to work, not only narratively but under the medium that it's being told.
Yeah.
And then you have a movie that's made where I'm thinking of Blade Runner versus Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, where the movie version goes into those concepts a little bit more, and it kind of takes like the surface level stuff of the book and makes it better. It makes it more in depth. It makes it so that like when you go back and read the book, you're like, oh, this is what Blade Runner is based on. This is weird. Okay. Yeah. And so, it can go different ways, but I think as long as it adjusts it okay enough, then I think that's totally fine. Yeah. It doesn't have to be like a 1-to-1. If it happens to work as a 1-to-1, that's even better. That's bonus points.
Right.
But yeah, that's just kind of where my perspective is on it.
Yeah. And same boat.
Yeah.
Same boat.
Was there anything else we wanted to talk about Shawshank with before we move on to The Green Mile?
No, there's a couple bits. I mean, about the only one to say is in the book, Red was a white Irishman.
Yeah, and that they kind of make a joke of that in the movie.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and I think the Darabont stuff is about all I had to say. They really wanted Tom Hanks to play Andy Dufresne.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it.
You
for sure.
have to, right? Because he's in another Frank Darabont film.
He's in another Frank Darabont that's based off of a Stephen King property that's set in a prison. Wow, crazy.
Yeah. No, other than that, like I said, a good movie's a good movie. Sometimes they're kind of hard to talk about because I feel like it's based on a story, right? And sometimes when that happens, it's an easy path to walk down from point A to point B, and it's really about more of the character development, growth, and how you relate to the characters as opposed to if the film itself and what they're trying to speak or get across, or taking these artistic choices. And this is a easy one that story-wise, and along with the characters, I mean, they do an absolute fantastic job. Yeah, so I don't have much more to say on it. I mean,
for sure. I think one thing I want to touch on before we wrap it up, and this is a thought I had while we were discussing the adaptation part of it, is that I feel like a reason that this movie resonates with so many people and is so popular and is a lot of people's favorites is, even if you're watching it for the first time, I feel like you kind of have that feeling of you sort of know where the payoffs are and you're looking forward to those payoffs. Like, oh, I'm looking forward to, the payoff of Andy escaping prison. I'm looking forward to the payoff of Red and Andy meeting up at the end and embracing finally. Yeah. Like, there's so many of those, like, drawn out sequences where there's a payoff at the end of it. And I think that's a source of comfort for a lot of people, too, when they rewatch this movie. Yeah. And I think that's why it went down as smooth as it did for us on a rewatch, is that, like, we know the points of crescendo that it's getting to, and the triumphant moments that happen inside of it. And I think that's where a lot of other people get their enjoyment from it as well. There's a sense of comfort in that.
100%. And I think that also helps with some of the pacing of the film too, because you have something to look forward to, and it's not necessarily I have to get through this moment. You know that it's leading up.
Absolutely.
I did have one. This was not critically successful when it first came out. I don't think it barely made back the budget. But the residuals alone, TNT bought it, and they put it on. I think they put it on like religiously. Yeah. Like I think Ted Turner said he loved the film so much and wanted to put it on, and that's why. I mean, it's had a more success probably because it's hit mainstream media. That you can see, and it's an easy film to put on TV. I don't know how much stuff they'd have to edit out. Just wanted to say that the other one too. thoughts or quick thoughts are your opinion. Or I don't know if you saw it, but Andy eventually digs a tunnel out of his wall, disguised behind these posters of these famous actresses.
Yep.
The warden has a safe built into the wall behind the proverb, he who cometh shall be judged, or something like that. Do you think was there anything that you picked up or gleaned from that at all?
What I noticed the most, and this was, kind of related to that, is the warden carries himself as a very religious man. He carries himself as somebody who, the gospel is gospel to him. But it's funny, the idea that Andy can give him the Bible and he almost takes it with him and he hands him back. And the entire time, the rock hammer's inside of it. He's such a religious man, he says, but he's so conceited and so overconfident that he doesn't even open up the Bible to read a verse.
Yeah. Because
he's so confident in his ability to read it off from his head that he's so cocky and he just doesn't see what's right in front of him,
Yeah. I thought it was a little humorous that he hides behind religion to cover as a veil. And Andy was actually using all these things in plain sight as hope to get, to seek his freedom.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was very humorous that they had he has the proverb on the wall and then he takes it off and he's got his vault filled with money.
Yeah.
And that he's disguising all of everything that he's doing with this proverb, and yet he's still, laundering and doing all this shit, throwing it in there.
I feel like there was something with the shoes too. Not just as part of his escape plan, but the idea of you're walking in his shoes to get his perspective, and Andy switches it with his prison shoes, which are all beat up and shitty looking, and he's walking out with Warden's nice polished shoes.
Yeah,
there's something about not only the imagery but just the concept of it. I'm a fan of.
There's small allegories here and there that make it. I mean, however you take it in, that make it a little bit more fun. They're kind of a little treats in this whole thing going on with this community inside of Shawshank.
What would we rate it? You want me to go first, or do you want to take the reins?
Do you want to do Green Mile second, since it was your first viewing? I kind of have a feeling where you're at. So you want to go first on this one then, and I'll go?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
Definitely considered a classic. I think it's one that holds up. One of my more favored Stephen King adaptations of a film. And, however many times I've seen it, watching this one again, it didn't really dampen the experience for me. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but I think it's one that it still holds up and it has a lot to offer, not just in terms of the storytelling, but just the different themes and the overall concepts going on. So this one is a 9 out of 10 for me.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. The relationship that Andy and Red have feels very organic. They seem to care for each other. The stuff that Andy's going through, through a character's perspective or through the audience observing this character, he never really falls, in anything that acting or however you want to view it. There's always a good sense of what's going on, and it never loses you watching this thing. Yeah, a little dated. Some of the cinematography is a little, all right. But in terms of the story and the characters, I absolutely love it. Pacing's fantastic. I also gave it a 9 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah.
Solid. Speaking of solid, Michael Clark Duncan is a solid boy because he's fucking huge in Frank Darabont's The Green Mile.
All right. The Green Mile. We're going to talk about that. We had another Frank Darabont adaptation.
Yeah.
So he must have did well enough with Shawshank to get the rights to this one, or maybe he just liked the book enough. I'm not sure.
Well, he does another Stephen King adaptation, The Mist, in 2007.
Really?
Yep.
That was him?
Yep.
Have you seen that?
Nope. Nope.
Not to give anything away, but Stephen King, that's like a movie that Stephen King that said that the movie ended better than what he could have written.
Yeah. I think I remember either you told me that or I came across that on my own.
You might I could easily see you coming across it on your own.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where if you like get into some Stephen King sort of, let's see how these movies have held up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like one of the first stats that pop up. But I didn't know that was Darabont because I thought it was just a first-time director, and now it makes more sense though.
Nope, it's our boy Frankie.
Yeah. So Green Mile, came out 1999. What you said, directed by Frank Darabont, adaptation. Tale set on death row, where it starts out with Tom Hanks, who's playing what's his name? Paul Edgecombe, right? And he's at a retirement home, and all of a sudden he's going through, and you get to see him. He seems pretty lively for being at a retirement home, and he meets up with his lady interest at the time, and he gets reminded of something through a film, and he just goes down memory lane, and he starts talking about how he was a not corrections officer, but a police officer. I don't exactly know guard detail.
Yeah.
And for death row at the time, and they called the death row the last mile at many prisons, but at their prison it was called the Green Mile because the tile, it was not decaying or eroding, but it had a limestony,
it was like a faded lime green.
Yeah, so they called it the Green Mile, and he's in there, and you get to meet some of the characters, and John Coffey shows up, and
it's like the drink, but spelled differently.
I'm tired, boss. Tired as a dog.
I'm tired of telling people the same damn thing over and over again when they ask me about my name, John Coffey.
Yeah, so we get to meet John and figure out some of the events that are going on in the Green Mile and how John Coffey's going to change their lives forever.
Yes.
So,
change he does.
We kind of, we talked about it. This is a film that it's funny because we were talking about before we got on here that when I was younger, my dad, as you know, would let us watch a lot of things, and I don't remember if this was a movie that he was like, I don't think he was interested in, so I don't know if it was like one of the ones where I would have been able to, hey, can we watch this, or I gotta see this. We just never came up, but it had a rated R title on it, and the poster, the artwork is profound.
Are you talking about the one with Tom Hanks just like going, like he's just kind of looking?
Definitely staring into space.
Yeah.
And there's almost a mouth agape with what he's saying. And I always thought that this movie was going to be very dark.
He kind of looks like he just saw Jared Leto climbing the Empire State Building.
Yeah. On the outside.
Yeah.
With like suction cups.
Right? He's the first man to legally climb the Empire State Building.
Yeah. And, just not really sure. And I remember seeing this being like, I don't know. How, this has got to be really bad if this this guy has a rated R title. You ever see something where it's like it's too dumb? It looks so dumb. It's got to be smart, and then it ends up being dumb. Like this movie looked so easy and not like
straightforward.
Kind of like low stakes, like there's not a heist. It's not like there's guns on the cover. It's not like, it's
right.
Explosions. It's literally Tom Hanks just staring into space, and you look at it and you go, that's got to be so much darker than what this is being portrayed, because there's no way that guy looking has a rated R title. Mm-hmm. Like I would go through, it's just when we went through the posters and artwork for the film.
Plus it's Tom Hanks. He's Mr. Wholesome Man,
At the time I didn't know. Now I do. Now, like, looking back.
Right.
But at the time, it's like, oh, man, they've got to show, like, someone's throat getting slit or something. And that's really not that at all. Another, I would say, wholesome movie.
Yeah, I would say so. So I told you before we started recording that, this is a movie that had stuff going on that I just was not prepared for. I did not expect in a movie like this.
Nice.
Well, because it's funny because when we were talking about this movie, and it just, I guess, generally when I thought about it in the cultural zeitgeist, I perceived this movie as being very straightforward. Just kind of like, oh, Michael Clark Duncan is an inmate on death row. He may be innocent. He may not be innocent. He's sad. Tom Hanks talks to him. He learns to connect with him, and then he gets killed, and then blah blah blah. It's all sad and stuff. And then I learned that the runtime is 3 hours. And I said to myself, how the fuck is this movie 3 hours long if it's like such a simple premise like that? Well, let me tell you, this movie goes into territories that are kind of wacky and goofy and just all fucking over the place. Like, it is out there. It is fucking weird. There was things that happened that I was like, what is happening? And I'll be real with you, Mac. This is a movie that I really don't think I enjoyed that much.
Really?
Yeah. I have my gripes with it.
That's why this will be. There we go. This is meaty now because now I'm very interested.
No, this is gonna get juicy.
All right,
I got my fucking beef with this movie.
That's good. I want to hear your beef too because I honestly don't have too many gripes with it just because.
Right.
If Stephen King wasn't attached to this, I think I'd view this differently. I'm not going to lie.
Interesting. How so?
Some of the supernatural forces going on.
Right.
And obviously it's not in our world or, it couldn't possibly be in our world. Obviously, with, supernatural forces going on, they present it in that light. And that's what Stephen King does. I mean, you got The Shining, you have all of his works of art usually present some sort of force happening that just isn't really too fathomable to be happening or occurring, right? Mm-hmm. So it gives me a little bit more sense of reality watching it, just knowing that Stephen King wrote it. So like, I guess I have a little bit more grace with what's going on because this isn't an original piece. It's being adapted from his work, and I know who he is as an author. Now, does it get a pass with that? We'll find out from you. For me, it has a little bit more grace because, like any of his other films, in dealing with some of the situations that people are put in, he doesn't really take you out of the world too much. It's just enough, But this movie, it's not without its flaws.
So I think. My issue isn't necessarily with the idea that it incorporates those supernatural elements. Mm-hmm. And I think it does have some interesting ideas and concepts in there. I think there's some things that happen in this movie that could work, and maybe some of them do work even. But the way that they go about it to me is just so goofily handled and
hokey.
It's super fucking hokey.
Yeah.
Super fucking hokey. This movie opens with Tom Hanks, I guess it doesn't open with this, but Tom Hanks is introduced trying to piss in a toilet, and that's like his introduction as a character. He's got what is it? UTI.
Yeah, he's got a urinary. He said it's the worst one, which was kind of weird because I think he said it's the worst one he's ever had.
Right. And you're like, is this important to the story? Like, he's talking about his piss hurting him? Like, what's happening
here? There's more
here?
thinking, like, how many UTIs have you gotten?
Oh, right. You collecting them like Thanos?
I got a UTI, and boy, I'll tell you what, it's the worst thing I've ever felt. It's the worst one I've ever had.
Oh, this one was the hardest to get, let me tell you. It was like the Soul Stone in Infinity War, I tell you what.
Yeah.
But no, just that as an introduction, it's like, this is how we introduce the main character. That's interesting. Okay. And then, of course, this is something that happens later in the movie, but Michael Clarke Duncan, and this is also, too, the introduction to us as a viewer of how we know that there's supernatural elements in this movie, right?
Yep.
So Michael Clarke Duncan, he sees that he just got kicked in the dick and is laying on the floor, and he's like, boss, I gotta talk to you right now. And he's like lying on the floor in the worst pain of his life you can assume. And he like crawls his way over there, and Michael Clarke Duncan just grabs him by the dick and just starts like doing his weird makeout magic with him and sucks out all the bad energy and like releases the flies. And it's like, what the fuck is this? This is so...
Yeah, issues with that? I can't believe that. That's so bizarre.
Oh, I know, right? So weird. So weird.
I guess I hadn't really thought... So for everyone listening, this is like my second or third time seeing this. So I'm prepared. I don't know if that's how I felt the first time I'd seen it. Because like I said, I saw this thing. I had a completely different... I thought this was going to be like fucking Oz from HBO the first time I ever saw it. And It's like completely... It's like
it's very much
Oz was dancing on rainbows. Yeah. Like there's some like things that happen in this thing that are kind of edgy and scary, but like in the grand scheme of things, not that bad.
Yeah, if Oz had like a crossover deal with Wizards of Waverly Place, and they had to become wholesome all of a sudden.
Like, that's what. So you saying that, I could definitely see how it is startling that this is the first time that we're going to show Michael Clarke Duncan, and maybe there's a very probably the weakest point you could be at in your life, besides what happened to Andy Dufresne and the sisters. You've got this unbelievable amount of pain, and giant Michael Duncan Clark grabs you by your dick. Like, you were in the most vulnerable spot you could possibly be in. So it might, I get it's like, I don't know. I guess they wanted it to have like a comedic angle at the beginning, so they're like, "Oh, let's just give him a UTI. His dick is fucked up." I think this is if I remember, I think Stephen King said I read this today, that this is the most closely adapted film that Stephen King's had adapted.
And that's okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to bring that up. That's another issue I had with this movie.
So this isn't a 1-for-1 for you then?
No. So you remember how we were talking about in our Shawshank discussion how it has the spirit of the story while working as a movie.
Yeah.
I think this is like way too long-winded, and it felt like it was a direct adaptation 1-for-1 of the book.
I agree.
For the worse.
When I got done with this thing, I was like, this is probably the closest movie I've seen to feeling like I read a book.
Yeah, it feels so drawn out, and it feels like they just combed through the book and were like, let's just include all of this. Let's not cut anything out.
Go through the book.
Let's not leave anything to make this more streamlined or to make this more cohesive as a movie. Let's just throw it all fucking in there.
I like to think that
because more is better, right?
There was like a portfolio or a binder like that big with the 400 or 500 pages. And
right.
Darabont ripped out like 30 pages and set it down. And like the guy walks up and he's like, "This is what we're using." And he goes, "No, this is what we're getting rid of."
Yeah.
And he just has like essentially the whole book still there.
Because like you have all of this stuff going on. And we were complimenting Shawshank of like how much it was accomplishing with the, runtime that it has. And it's not a short movie by any means, but it's 40 minutes shorter than this. Mm-hmm. And this movie, it feels like there's maybe almost as much happening, but it just goes slower, and it feels like there's more unnecessary things going on.
I think because of the characters, Shawshank, you only really have two, and then everyone else plays off of what's going on with Andy and Red. Mm-hmm. Whereas this one, no one really plays off with what's happening. It's hard to even say that there's a protagonist in the film. I mean, you could definitely say that Tom Hanks goes through a little bit of the growth, right? But I mean, like, we're seeing everyone else with what's going on, and like, you can't even say how it impacts Tom Hanks because he's always in control of what's happening, it seems like.
Right.
Yeah. So you really just feel like you're a fly on the wall in this little area observing all of this stuff going on constantly, but they throw a lot at you, and I think part of it is just because of how many characters are in the film that they're trying to satisfy.
Mm-hmm. I liked in Shawshank how everything seemed very tonally consistent. It seemed believable. Everything kind of, within the context of the story, right? It seemed consistent. So, like, you've got very similar music going on, very similar visual style. Everything has a tone of, like, consistency. Mm-hmm. Whereas this movie, it'll go from, like, a scene where, I don't know, I was surprised that he was in this movie, too. Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
I almost said Sam Jackson. That's not right. When Sam Rockwell's introduced and like, oh, he's like a super dark, evil character. He's like done all this horrible shit. And then it goes into a scene where like the guy's playing with the mouse and the music's going like bloop, 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 bloop. And it's like super lighthearted and like almost feels like a moment in the show Bones. We're like, oh, they're being quirky, so let's play the quirky music. Like, it just, I don't know, it took me out of it so many times.
I
very much tonal whiplash in this movie.
There's a lot of tonal issues going on with it.
Yes,
and it is so. It was kind of interesting seeing these two things because they're not really. They don't feel like Stephen King works with what he typically does, right? So like with Shawshank, it felt like it addressed the human spirit. Whereas this one felt like it addressed a little bit more of the human condition, and I think that's why you have these different tones going on as we're trying to address, within such a serious environment, the range of emotions that you can feel with events going on. But and I don't want to sit here and defend this thing. It's not like I love it. It's my favorite film ever. So don't get me wrong. I mean, I think that I gave it a little bit more of I think this is what we're trying to get after. Mm-hmm. It just felt a little quirky. I guess I can't.
It feels mismanaged. It feels jumbled. It feels like they bit off more than they could chew, and they didn't narrow it down to like a cohesive tone or narrative or something that felt like it had a like specific effective through line. Because there is a lot going on in this movie, and there are concepts that I'm like not like entirely against or anything. But I don't know. To me, this is just a very jumbled mess of a movie with just not only how long it is and like the pacing. I had issues with the pacing too, but just like the weird tonal whiplash and just some of the goofiness of the execution of some of the scenes. So like, I don't know. I mentioned earlier, like he grabs his dick. And then, towards the end when he cures the lady of her cancer in the bed and he's like kissing her on the lips, it's like, oh boy, that's a choice. This just looks weird. How come the husband isn't like, hey, don't kiss my, cancer wife right now? Like, this is just weird.
I thought the first time I watched this thing, I was like, oh my God, he's going to bone her.
I was like, what is the message of this scene?
There's some romanticism going on with him saving her life and everyone's just sitting there and... Yeah,
I guess was it supposed to be like, oh, he's a prince and he's like saving her from like the evil that is cancer, or is this just like, oh, this is just a choice? We're just gonna have him kiss her because what else would you do?
Well,
I don't know, just touch her leg.
No, because all right, so I think how they fucked up, and this is what threw me off too, is when he does the Tom Hanks thing, right? It's not like he gets into Tom Hanks' mouth or is like kissing him or anything like that. Not the first time. The first time he's literally just grabbing. He's like, "Relax, boss, I got you." It's like,
relax,
you do.
Relax. I'm gonna make you feel relaxed in a minute.
Oh, by the way, too, Michael Duncan Clark had such a hard time doing that scene, and he couldn't do it with Tom Hanks. So Tom Hanks, being Tom Hanks, a cool, dad, goes and grabs a water bottle and put a water bottle down his leg. So he's like, "You just grab onto that."
That's funny.
Yeah. So, anyways. He doesn't do that the first time. You kind of have this like, all right, but then he does the kiss. But then the second time when he does it to Percy, or the third time, he gets almost mouth to mouth with Percy to get the shit into him.
Right.
Which I'm like, why didn't you do that with Tom Hanks? And we all kind of know that there's this really intimate nature going on besides you just grabbing him, and that's where some of the consistency with how he was doing things too is throwing me off. And
yeah, so here's what I think they maybe should have done.
Okay,
keep it not only more consistent, but scale it to the point where it's believable.
Give Tom Hanks a hemorrhoid.
Yes, he has to suck his ass.
Turn around, boss.
Yeah, I'll make you feel relaxed, boss. It's coffee, but not like the drink. No, I think you start with the mouse. I think you should have started with the mouse.
Yeah.
And then
made the mouse such a character.
Made the mouse
a little bit more than what it was.
A little bit more, but like also like you get the sense of like, oh, something weird's going on. Like you keep it smaller scale, you keep that level of believability and like the possibility that this is still a grounded story.
Yeah.
And then, don't give Tom Hanks a fucking UTI. Give him something else that he's dealing with. Like, oh, maybe he has a limp or something.
Yep.
Or something else that he's physically dealing with that's inhibiting him. And then Michael Clark Duncan cures him then. And then like, oh shit, this is for real. This is like a thing that's actually happening. And then, you gradually work your way from there to the wife with cancer. And so not only do you like cut some of the weird tonal goofy bullshit down, but then you also get a sense of like, oh, this is going from like low stakes to high stakes.
How much can he really do?
Right. And not only that, but like it's going from lighthearted to like the more darker elements. Like obviously like they're having fun with the mouse. The mouse is goofy. It's, stuff that has like a little more lightheartedness to it. And then Percy comes in, steps on it. It's really sad. But then he's back to life and it's all good again. But then like you get more and more into like, oh, what can he like do? The implications of like not only like his ability to help people, but why he's locked up in the first place, why he was crying out, I couldn't help it. Because when you first meet him, you think, oh, he's saying that because he couldn't help but kill them.
Of mice and men.
Right. When, in reality of the story, he couldn't help save their lives. He's not the one who killed them. He's innocent.
Yeah.
And that would have had more of a punch, I think, if they had structured it in a way like that.
Yeah, yeah. Build up the stakes, and you're learning about the character, and you'll get to a point where you realize, without actually having to be force fed into he didn't do it.
Right, and there's a way I think where like structurally this movie could work. It's for how it is at the moment. It's just a jumbled mess to me.
It really is. I mean, but you know, I kind of, I do. I mean, I like it that way just because it's kind of like the Spider-Man, you know, when I was like, you know, the panel and all that shit, and there's like editing, and it's just everything that you could possibly throw at you, and it's like, well, it felt truer to the comics, right?
Right.
This one to me felt a little bit truer to the human condition, you know, because these emotions that you go on, it's not linear in terms of stakes. So, you know, you're not presented with something small, something a little bit bigger, something a little bit bigger. I mean, you're just handed events and opportunities when they pass up to make your, you know, to make an impact. And I agree. The UTI probably could have been different. Like they could have trimmed out Tom Hanks fucking his wife for 9 hours, and
they had to make it a point to show us, oh wow, this guy can fuck good.
Yeah, and pissing out in the lawn.
Right.
Dude, like the first time I'd seen this thing, I was like, I missed the fact that he said he had a UTI, so I didn't know what was going on. And when he collapsed and just started peeing, I was like, this is really bizarre.
Yeah.
And then when Michael Duncan grabbed him, I was like, oh, he's helping out his dick. Like, oh, something's going on. You know, like, and, you know, but stuff like that you could have trimmed out, and right. There's some of those smaller pieces in the movie that just really represent they're nothing burgers. You know, that you could have eliminated. But I enjoyed the range of emotions that I would go through as I would be, you know, all of a sudden I'm elated and I'm rooting, and next thing you know, it's over, you know, and next thing you know, it's back onto, well, you're onto the next person. Maybe they got a chance, you know, and but it could have been, I think the main plot point, maybe not main plot point. Well, I guess you could say main plot with the murders. That probably could have been done in a different way.
I think so.
And, you know.
Yeah,
I agree with you on that aspect. I mean, I like I said, I like the way that it moved around. But
it's got interesting things going on, and I do like the idea of like, oh, Shawshank was like the human spirit. This is the human condition. Like we're not only learning about like human suffering, but also just the capacity for good and evil that people have within themselves.
Yeah,
and like the kind of muddled nature that has within our world.
Whereas, I mean, within 5 people just in a room.
Right. And I like that grounded aspect of it. And I would never say that the acting is bad in this movie.
Yeah.
I think I think another major part of where this movie misses the mark is I feel like they really could have used Michael Clarke Duncan more to be a character. I feel like he's not really much of a character in this movie.
Hey, he's just gonna do your thing.
You're just gonna be magical healing man, and that's just his character. He gets one longer piece of dialogue with Tom Hanks towards the end when he's about to get electrocuted, and that's pretty much all you get. When I was going into this movie, you know, supernatural side of it, with or without it, what I was really hoping for most of all was like a good portion of dialogue between Tom Hanks and Michael Clarke Duncan. You know, they get to know each other. He gets to sympathize a little bit with his situation. Michael Clarke Duncan, you know, whether he's innocent or not, gets to learn about the situation that he's in. He gets to like kind of soak in it, think about his lot in life.
Yeah.
And there's some philosophical things that you can pull from that, and like, you know, the responsibility that a guard has of like, do I be emotionally invested in this character, or do I, you know, keep my distance as a guard to save myself from this pain that I might feel?
Yeah.
And that's really kind of something I was hoping for in this. And, you know, supernatural side of it, you know, with or without, you don't really get that.
No, you don't. Their relationship, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's like, you know, they were trying to go with Red and Andy 2.0. And it never really develops. And no, I mean, like, I felt bad for Michael Duncan Clarke. I mean, he's fantastic in this thing.
His acting's good.
But it's like, hey, you're just doing the one note, you know. We just want you to be a, you know, this overbearing, you know, large African-American guy that's kind of, you know, daft. And you have this power. And that's about it. That's all we're going to give you. And it's, you know, I want you to be good with Tom Hanks. And Tom's going to learn to respect you and grow to care for you. But nothing... That the ending of this thing could have been 10 times more impactful, and I'm talking dusty room.
Right, because this is a movie that has like the status of, oh, it's going to make you cry. And the only thing I felt was like, oh, wow, it's almost over. Like, I mean, not to be callous about it, but like, you know, like you said, if Michael Clarke Duncan was if John Coffey was expanded on more as a character, I would have cared.
You would have. There's a little bit more room in there for you to understand and sympathize with what he's going through. Now, I think half the problem is without them actually doing anything with him, you're just like, oh, this guy has supernatural powers, and he's just kind of tired of being, the unicorn in the world that everyone hates him. Mm-hmm. And that's all you really get from him. And, it sympathizes enough, but we don't learn much about him or anything other than that he's got this power and he's just tired. Mm-hmm. And it's like at some point that's just not enough to carry into the God, what's and it is sad. I mean, at least I was like, every time I see it, I kind of have like a little bit of a choke in my throat, and I go, that's just too bad. Like it's it holds true to outside events too, with some of our population.
Yeah.
And, but at the same token, it felt like they didn't really do him any justice or respect with how they wrote it. And I think it could have been 10 times more impactful had they given him
I agree.
anything.
100% I agree. Because I would never say the acting in this movie's bad. I think that Tom Hanks does a good job. I like the side performances from, I forget the guy's name, but he plays Dale in The Walking Dead, and he was also in Shawshank as the lawyer. Oh, God, what's his name?
He's one of the
he's one of the guards.
Yeah,
Jeffrey DeMunn.
Yeah,
I like him. I like Barry Pepper. I thought he was good. The guy who played Percy, he was good at playing a scumbag.
Oh gosh, fucking Percy.
Yeah, fucking Percy, man.
Yeah,
and Doug Hutchinson.
Yeah, they almost didn't hire him because he was too old.
Interesting.
And then he went to and so he was too old. And then he tried out for another film. I can't remember what I read. That had to be an older character, and they said you look too young, and he had to show him his driver's license.
He didn't look too old to me. He looked appropriate for the.
He's supposed to be 21 in that film.
Interesting.
He was 36, I think, when they filmed.
I mean, he was good at playing a sniveling little prick.
Oh my, fuck it. See, but that's where some of this film where you really don't like the characters you don't like. Mm-hmm. And the comeuppance that some of them get, you feel good about, but it like hokey, campy, silly. Like that's why some of this movie just doesn't have the payoff that it was gearing towards.
It feels like they focus almost on the wrong thing, because you get a character like Percy. Obviously, he's supposed to be the bad guy. Obviously, he's supposed to be the one that like you hate throughout the movie. And they give him a lot to do. They give him a lot to work with. They give him a lot of reasons for you to hate him, and he has a proper arc. The problem with that is, because he has such an arc, and because the movie focuses on everything about him, it focuses so much less on Michael Clark Duncan.
Yes.
I feel like John Coffey should have had more of an arc in this movie than Percy.
Supernatural guy. Yeah.
Right. The guy who is like the second build in this movie. I feel like they really failed at giving him anything meaningful to do, and because of that, my detachment of this film was more than it probably could have been.
Oh, dude. I mean, like, think about it too. You're walking into this saying, there's some elements going on of, right and wrong, good and evil. We're focusing on the guards, and then you get John Coffey coming in. You're mesmerized, right? I mean, this is like a circus show going on. I mean, they made him to be John Henry meets, Lenny from Mice and Men.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh man, like let's find out more about what's going on with this guy, and then as an audience member, you want to see it, and then we just don't do anything with him. He's gonna kind of play second fiddle and pop up in and out when we need him to.
Yeah,
and you're gonna.
He's more of a plot device than a character, honestly.
Dude, it's a tall tale. It's a myth. I mean, he walks in and it's anyone that's ever gone to prison. I mean, he's Andy Dufresne with supernatural powers, and that's kind of like how they played him up in this thing, is that he's just going to live in folklore as someone that kind of came and went and was dust in the wind. And it's like, even in folklore and tales of Paul Bunyan and John Henry and Wild Bill, like all those people, they have a little bit of a background behind them on how they became who they are.
Yeah,
and we really don't get anything. I mean, he's just another stranger in the night, and it really. To have someone as impactful as he is in this film not do much of anything, I don't know. I was a little peeved off by it. I didn't, and I wasn't trying to get any racial things, but I was like, I hadn't seen this film In about 6 to 7 years.
Magical black man, basically, is what I was thinking the whole time. Right?
I got into it, and so he does the thing with Tom Hanks, and then he heals the rat or the mouse. Sorry, Jesus, don't want to piss anyone off.
It was Mr. Jingles. Thank you very much. He has a name.
Fucking asshole.
Mr. Jingles has more of an arc in this movie than
he did.
John Coffey.
I can't exactly remember when, but there's a point where they're having a discussion, and like, I'm just thinking like, oh, this is it. This is really all the lines that they're gonna give him. You know?
Yeah.
Like this is all we're gonna get from him.
Well, it really does not help too, and it ages this movie very much. Where if this movie had come out today, people would be screaming, this is such a racial stereotype. Like, you have magical black man who has no character, who his only importance to the story is that he can magically heal people.
Yep.
Like, that is it, right? Yep. And yeah. I have a pretty big issue with that too.
That's what I'm saying. It kind of, but the way I feel at the end of this thing is I felt like there was some human connection between Tom Hanks and Paul and John.
Yeah.
And that's it could have been a lot more profound.
Yeah, my problem with it would have been mitigated. Just give him more character, give him more to do.
Yeah.
And have us actually sympathize with him.
Yeah.
What do we think of Sam Rockwell in this movie? I liked his introduction. I liked the way he was brought in. And then the whole time he's just acting like a fucking maniac, which I feel like can be fun. For this movie, it's so jarring. Like, I don't know, it like would take me out of it sometimes. Just the way that he would just overperform as like crazy fucking maniac.
Yeah.
Right? Like his character is only like, wacky. It's like if they took
John Coffey and put him as the killer.
Or I was thinking like the character in Shawshank that confesses to the thing to Tommy.
Yes.
It's like if they took that character and expanded his role.
Yep. And
like gave him more to do. And that's kind of how I feel about Sam Rockwell in this film.
You said jarring, but I think I held it more as jarring as like pure evil. There are times when it's kind of weird. I mean, at least for me, when I'm watching, an actor or a character in a film, and you just know that there's nothing behind the eyes, whether or not they overperform or not, it's still I don't want to say it maybe sickens me, maybe it creeps me out. Mm-hmm. I always feel on edge anytime he got on screen, and. Yeah. Whether or not, and I agree, he was overacting. I mean, some of the hooting and the hollering and all the shit that he did, it's like, all right, this seems a little over the top, but like just what he personified was enough to keep me on edge a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I can't say that because I think at times I was worried that he's going to do something that was going to be like upsetting, because he just had that ability. Mm-hmm. But yes, over cartoony is the way I would use it, but. And I don't think it was not tastefully done cartoony. It was silly cartoony, but still his character as a whole, and that could just be how it was written with the events going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's the moment, too, where, like, Michael Clark Duncan reaches his hand out and tells Paul, take my hand, I'll show you what I saw.
Yeah.
When Sam Rockwell grabbed his arm. And then he does it, and it's a super drawn-out scene of, like, him... like seeing everything that Billy the Kid did or whatever. Yeah. Well, first of all, he's like goofily having a weird seizure moment.
Lights
explode. And then it goes on way too long. It's like, leave some of this stuff up for the imagine. Because like I knew that's probably what it was before we even saw any of the flashback scenes, right?
Yeah.
You only need to show us like a couple things and then just like let it be. And then we can assume that Tom Hanks saw the rest of it and that he's horrified. No, just show him everything.
Just in case.
Run the runtime of this even more. Why not?
Yeah. Just in case you miss it. We're going to show him up on the roof.
Spell it out for him because they're fucking dumb.
We're watching paint dry, but we're going to slow it down into a dreamlike sequence.
Yes.
Like.
100%. It's like, come on.
That whole dinner, like him. The only thing that I would get, I just wish it was like you could, like the camera would start on the shed, and as he's going through, you're hearing everything going on, but it's getting to Sam Rockwell. Mm-hmm. Just build up to that point, and then past that, get it back into him sneaking in. Like it's probably I want to say like a 5-6 minute sequence.
It's long.
That really feels
way too
dragged out. Yeah,
100%.
There are a couple things in here that I'm just like, man, yawn.
Yeah,
I
don't know. There's like ideas in this that I like. There's ideas in this that I can get behind. Like just not even like conceptually, just like the way the movie presents itself as like, oh, this is going to be a very intimate look at these few guards and these few prisoners, and they're going to be in the same environment, and you get some interesting dialogue from it. Whether or not supernatural stuff happens, it's like, okay, there's something interesting here to garner from it.
Just think about it alone of you're strangers and you're about to meet God. And you're spending your last days with these people you don't even know.
Yeah, and
as those people, you have to take care of this person, whether or not you like them.
And those people have a pre-established relationship. They all know each other.
Yeah.
They all like each other to varying degrees. And then, like you said, they're complete strangers to the inmates, and there's something you can work from there. I think you could have adapted this and rearranged it and put it in a way that works and is streamlined, and they just didn't do that.
No, they took the book and they just essentially put every page from the book into the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, the funny thing is, I'm thinking about it, it's like Darabont writing this thing. It's like, well, who do we got to cut out? We got to trim the fat somewhere. It's like, oh, magical black man.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we don't have to do anything with his character development.
He did do the screenplay. He also did the screenplay for Shawshank. So I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he did it for The Mist too. Like if I had to guess, I think he's adapted
he's directly responsible for the writing of each of these.
Yeah. He did. He did that. He had a cat that had a brain tumor. And instead of putting the cat down, because it wasn't in pain or anything, the cat would come up, so he would write this stuff, and he had a very he said it was eye-opening as he's going through watching, this is the friend, this thing that he loves, kind of just walking its last days, and that's where some of the intimacy came from with the Green Mile, on the look of how do you treat these people, with kind hearts, or being gentle without, knowing that they're not in pain, but eventually, I mean, you're counting down days.
Yeah,
so he took it, but I just feel like he really just didn't know where to go with it, so he just said, "We'll grab everything from the book."
Yeah,
but I don't know why else. Why would you even take it on then?
Right. Like, it's so interesting to me how he does such a concise job of adapting Shawshank Redemption, making it its own thing, making it streamlined and work as a movie. And then you take this and it's such a slog. It's such a mess.
It might have been too where I could definitely see, because it's a very intimate setting and you only have a couple characters. Like Shawshank at least has enough going on with the interactions around Andy and what's happening in the prison.
Right.
You don't have to necessarily, you are focusing on the characters the whole time, but there are other leading or inciting events going on because someone else is engaging in it. Whereas in this one, you've got 5 buddies that have these guys held up in prison cells. How much are you going to really pull from someone engaging or acting? So I think when you get to the characters and you're looking at it, it's hard to figure out how you're going to trim these guys, give the ones you want to have arc, or maybe, not necessarily say all of them, but give them the room and the growth that they need, and who you're going to kind of just say, all right, you're going to fall on deaf ears. Like, I don't think Barry Pepper had much going on. I was actually even shocked that he was crying at the end of the thing.
Yeah, Jeffrey DeMunn doesn't have that much to do.
Besides kind of being one of the buddies that's like, well, get him up there to your wife.
Yeah, their characters are that they are friends of Tom Hanks.
Even Brutal doesn't do much besides show a little bit of compassion, and I think you just even garner that because his name's Brutal, and you get to see him show a little bit of sympathy.
Right. His character is interesting in almost name alone.
And another problem that I had too is with Tom Hanks. It's like what sort of growth did he go through? Does he learn to sympathize more? Did he learn to respect or understand the prison mates? Because he leads off with a film of, this is these guys' last walk. They're about to meet God. We're not fucking it up. We're going to do our jobs and be professional about what we do. So is it that he just didn't have any sort of compassion with the people, but yet he understood what they were going through? And then he eventually learned to show some sort of compassion? I mean, at the end of the film, you kind of get a little bit of, which I had another issue with too. So at the end of the film,
Yes, let's get into it.
John Coffey's the last guy that I ever did at Shawshank. Went to become corrections officers because I wanted to grab them while they were young. You know, not in a John Coffey sense, but help them out.
I like how you said Shawshank too.
What?
Yeah, I think you said Shawshank Prison.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know what this one was called. It was just Louisiana.
It was just E-Block, basically, what they were running.
And I had another problem. It's like, dude, you're adapting this thing. Take them out of fucking Louisiana. Let's pick the Cajun accent to give everyone.
Yeah. Shout out to Louisiana, where my girlfriend is from.
Yeah. Yeah, no, listen, I'm saying, when I... Side tangent real quick.
Yes.
When I fucking think of films to pick from states, I'm like, hey, we're going to film here. There's like a couple that I stay away from, and it's because of accent alone. Massachusetts, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Stay the fuck away. No, if you're not,
there's a very high chance you won't do it right.
Yeah, you're not from the area, and people are going to spot it from a mile away. Like, one of the things with Leonardo and Shutter Island was, did he get the Boston accent down? Like, that shouldn't be a fucking talking point. Like,
right.
I shouldn't, and I typically don't get distracted, but I thought they were in Alabama, and it wasn't until halfway through the film I saw the Louisiana on a truck, one of the dollies that bring them in. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, this is Louisiana. I was like, why the fuck? You adapted it. Just pick Maine.
Yeah.
You know, like, you didn't have to
pick wherever is most convenient, I guess.
Like, literally, they've tried to make the heat and the temperature like a big kind of like, oh man, it was the hottest summer in 35, and it's like it didn't do anything for anyone at any point.
Well, I feel like you'd mostly pick those locations too if they have some sort of like bearing or importance to the story, and this one really doesn't.
I think.
I mean, the most is that like the guy is Cajun, the one guy with the mouse.
No, I think one thing I did read is they went 1935 because I think the story was set at a later time, and they wanted to do it so that it would seem more plausible that John Coffey was convicted for murder without having any proper evidence.
Right.
He literally just found him with the two dead girls, and it's like, that's enough, hang him, right?
Yeah.
And I think they went down south to even play more into that because there's some racial overtones in this thing. Like,
of course.
Like fucking Gary Sinise and his conversation. I was like, this is fucking weird.
Yeah, he's comparing John Coffey to his dog that he had to put down.
Yeah, like, don't show him any sort of compassion. And it's like, anyways, a couple weird things. I was like, oh, maybe that's why they did Louisiana. But once again, it's adapted. So why don't you fucking do something smart? Yeah. You know, like, pick something. We'll focus on the story and take away some of the... Dude, you found two dead girls. You could have been in freaking Maine, and I still would have been like, oh, I guess I could see at a hearing or a trial he got convicted. But
anyway,
you get to the end of the film, right? He leaves, and it's like, oh, maybe... Oh, I had a human connection with a prisoner. Mm-hmm. You know, I've come to realize and sympathize with maybe evil forces, or I've seen that I don't represent all that is good in the world, and I guard the gates against those that are good versus those that are evil, right? Or I usher them into, the final resting place. Nope. Definitely don't know if that was it. And then all of a sudden he's like, and John Coffey fucked me over, and now I have to walk life.
I'm 200 years old now.
It's like I
was like, what?
I completely forgot about that, and literally he's sitting there talking to Elaine, right?
Sure.
And
his friend,
his boning buddy. He's like, I'm on the third one of you, which is another like, okay, guy. I was like, this feels a little bit more modern. And then he said that he'd done it for 60 years, or he'd been somewhere for 60 years, and that's when I started like, wait, how old is this? I was like, did he get those powers again? And then he gets into his little soliloquy of, you're gonna die, I'll have to see that, I guess it's just what John left me before I go. And then I'm like, what fucking payoff is this?
Here's where I definitively suspected that this was like directly pulled from the book, right? That everything was included from the book virtually. Because there's no reason for them to like include shit like that. There's no real reason for that to happen in this film. Because like what are we getting from this? Like, Mr. Jingles is the most emotional impact we get from that whole ending, because otherwise you're scratching your head going like, what the fuck is this? Like, what's going? He's like 108, but he looks like he's 60, but he's like still elderly.
Not only that,
it takes whatever emotional punch you would have maybe had there, like if you had felt it at all, and just whisks it away.
Like, I had no idea. It's very you are so spot on with that. if they do this thing with the handshake and he's talking to Elaine and he goes, and that was my friend John Coffey, and he's like, I've seen a lot of hard things in my life. I'm 82 years old. I've seen my wife go. I've seen my son go. But the hardest impact that I've had was watching John and seeing his eyes disappear.
My God. This could have been such a good mirror and like, opposite to Shawshank, where Shawshank is about like, holding on, keeping on hope and knowing that, people are going to be there for you. This one could have been learning about letting go and being okay with the fact that like one day you're going to be alone. And
the human condition.
The human condition. That it could have been such a good opposite, but it's not.
Yeah, they just went into weird, like, it's so funny too, because it's like,
it could have been such a good companion.
Paul is the only guy that was like very moved by John, and John fucked him in the end by making him have to see all these people die, and there's supposed to be some profound statement with like, and I'll see it again, and I guess that's just my bear to burden because I took one of God's angels.
This is my curse for letting him die. It's like, what? He fucking wanted to die. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's what I was saying too. I was like, how do you blame yourself for that? He literally looked at you and just said, this is the world that we're in.
He was like, I could let you go. I could let you run away. And he's like, no, I'm tired, boss. Just fry me up. It's like, okay, well.
By the way, you're going to live to 200, you piece of shit.
It's like, oh, pranked you.
Yeah. Like,
your only friend's going to be a mouse.
You're going to get chlamydia in the old people's home.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. Dude, you're spot on, though, because, like, they do another 20 minutes of that shit, and, like, any sort of, like, oh, man, I just witnessed all that, went to, wait, hold on.
It just takes the wind out of your sails.
He's just watching all of his friends die, and this is his burden to bear. Like, and maybe he was going for, where John gave everyone life, I have to now see death. I don't know. I think it was trying to be way more profound, which where in a book, it probably resonates with those last 30 pages. Because they've gone up and have developed all of the characters.
And you've like spent more time with it. You're reading it as a novel.
Yeah.
So, there's a little more involvement with it.
Probably know who John is and where he came from. Not just, unicorn guy.
They probably describe him as a character.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And and I guess I should have now, like looking back, seeing some of the stuff, they did all these props and stuff to get Michael Duncan Clark to seem huge. He was only,
there's a lot of perspective stuff going on.
He's an inch taller than Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of what they had to do
he was the same height as Brutal.
Yeah. And they had to do all this shit. Now I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh, he wasn't using him as a character. He was using him as like a plot device or like a toy in the film. And like you guys wait till you see this guy. You're gonna be amazed. He's fucking huge.
This is the biggest motherfucker you've ever seen.
Yeah, like hey, he saves people. He seems kind of kind-hearted, and he was unjustly, very, he's got to die. It's like, well, who the fuck cares? Look how big this dude is.
Yeah, they were hoping that audiences would see this movie and think, oh, he's the gentle giant character. I automatically love him already. And it works with the way people talk about this film sometimes.
It's a circus act is what it is.
Right. And maybe there's something a little more going on thematically with the circus and the mouse town and everything.
That's one of the themes we miss.
Oh, yeah. We're too stupid for this movie. All right. We are kind of running a little long with this. So is there anything else we wanted to say about Green Mile before we give our ratings?
Real quick.
Yes.
We talk about Tom Cruise being a great actor and taking care of us. Tom Hanks, just as a human, I think he's got to be phenomenal. I'm not sure. Yes. He could be a giant piece of shit. Don't know. But I read that he fed everyone on set dinner on Friday nights because they went 2 months over schedule, and he could see I think morale was getting low or something like that. So like at some point he just started feeding people on Friday nights off his own dime.
That tracks. That seems like something Tom Hanks would do.
That's why I think this film's wholesome.
They'll be saying, "Hey, Tom, thanks."
Yeah. Get that on a shirt.
All right. Yeah. New merch. Green Mile, don't sue us. Do we want to get into ratings?
Yeah, we can. I might have to bump it down one
after our discussion.
Yeah, there's just sometimes I that's why I get a little confused always, because it had me at some emotional grasp with it. I think for me this is like it's above average film. with the storyline and the characters going on. It does enough with who I care about in the film. For the most part, like I said, I really hadn't realized what they literally made John Coffey like Lenny of Mice and Men and just said that's what you get.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. And I think because of that and some of the things we talked about, I'm going to bump it down a star. I give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay. That's your rating, 7 out of 10.
That's my stance on it. I'm not very strong on it. I could probably drop it down another one if I see it again and ran into more people that had the same problems that I did. But in terms of wholesome and emotional range, I definitely it gives me just enough. And some of the flaws that it has, and even the ending, I think entertainment value alone is where I kind of stand with it.
Okay, I gotcha. This is a 5 out of 10 for me.
Nailed it.
This is one that, despite some of my expectations not being met, I was open to the concepts. I was open to the themes going on. My main problem is that this movie is so jumbled. It's so messy. It's all over the place. I feel like there's a skeleton of a movie that works in here, but they just really threw the book at it literally and said, hey, everything's going to stick. We're going to adapt everything in this novel, and we're going to implement it into the script. And I don't know, it's just such a departure from Shawshank in that way, where Shawshank feels tighter. It feels like it knows what it wants to go for more. This movie, to me, is so unfocused, very goofy in a lot of points, and has a lot of problems that I don't think have aged well at all.
In Frank's defense, I think there are some times where you read a book that is very altering, changes your perspective on things. Island of Dr. Moreau, well, no. Yeah, no, kind of. Where you just want to pull so much from what you see with your vision that you don't really recognize that you're just cramming all these pictures together and nothing's really congealing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where I'm at with this movie.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that was a good discussion. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, I did too. I'm glad we talked about that because I hadn't thought about that thing in a while, and I saw that, and it's been a while since I've had a head scratcher ending, and that was definitely a fucking head scratcher ending.
More like a dick scratcher with the UTI. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My boy had itchy dick.
He had something going, dude. Him just peeing out in that lawn. Especially you just turn that on to HBO one time and you just see Tom Hanks like struggling to get out.
Yeah, he's struggling to crawl across his backyard.
And he does like the hand to the door, and it's like, dude, you're just too far away. And then he just gets up on his knees and you just see that flow and he's screaming. It's like, what is going on here?
Yeah, there's a lot you could take out of context with this movie and it would be really funny.
Oh my God, that'd be a great, like, you've been pranked. People that haven't seen it, just like, oh, hold on one sec. Yeah, no, I'm going to throw on one of my favorite movies and like just turn on to like, hey, boss. Boom.
Oh, yeah.
Just like Tom Hanks. Oh.
It's like, isn't this movie supposed to make me cry?
Yeah.
Speaking of making me cry,
yes,
we got a couple questions that might make me cry. I don't know. Just kidding. Haha. They're great questions from Wes and Zach that we've been meaning to answer for like over a month now.
Yeah, it's all right.
But,
we'll get to them. We promise you guys we'll always get to them if you ask them.
Well, I made a promise last episode, which, if you're keeping track, is part 3 of our Spider-Man discussion. So check that out if you haven't already. But I made a promise to them that we'd answer these questions and that we would go over them with our answers.
Yes.
So our first question comes from Wes, and this is kind of a longer one.
Okay.
But I do have an answer for it. And he asks, what book, this is appropriate to Stephen King too.
Nice tie-in.
What book / animation / video game would you like to see adapted to the big screen? Would a television show work better? Who would direct / star in it? What aspects of the source material would be essential? What would you do differently from the source material? Can't wait to see what you guys say.
You want to go first? I got to think about this.
I'll go first. Yeah. I got a couple up the pipe.
Yeah.
So this is one that I've discussed before. I don't know if I've discussed it with you, but I think it would be really appropriate, especially with some of the movies he's made recently. But it would be really hard to swallow since we've had so many movies of this property before already. Wes Anderson making a Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, I think would be delightful. I think it needs to happen. And the fact that there's a real possibility that it won't just because there's so many movies already of Willy Wonka, it makes me sad at the potential that we're missing out on.
Yeah.
I think that could have been a really good one.
So you're going Willy Wonka. You don't have like any comic books or any video games?
I have a video game too.
You gotta. I'm trying to think. Like I'm not
you're
great
good.
on the spot. So you could rattle off. I mean, I'll hop in.
No, you're good.
I am literally trying to because I got sports games, so like I don't think MLB The Show could be transferred to a movie.
Mm-hmm. I think that there's a possibility of making a good adaptation of Dishonored. I don't know if you've played that game or heard of that game. It's kind of like. It's a first-person stealth game, but it's got a lot of like supernatural stuff about it, and it's very steampunky.
Yeah,
and
I just read about steampunk today. I didn't know that it was like a genre.
Oh, really? You discovered steampunk today?
Well, I've seen movies. So like the Cineworld or Cinderword.
The Wordle 2 Wordle Nerd the name is so goddamn stupid.
Isn't it? But I play it all the time.
I like that game a lot.
Cine 2 Nerdle.
Cine 2 Nerdle, yes.
Cine 2 Nerdle.
Cine 2 Nerdle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dumb name, but good game.
Yeah. But anyways,
one
of the themes was steampunk. So I ended up getting it right. It was like Wild Wild West, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and it said steampunk. I'm like, what the fuck is steampunk?
Yeah.
You know, so I've seen it visually done and used as a theme in movies, but I didn't know what it was. So I read about it. I was like,
you couldn't put it into words, yeah.
Hell no! If someone was like steampunk, I just thought it meant locomotive, which it kind of fits. It fits in. Yeah,
it's a little more than that.
Retro futuristic is what I read, and it's one of the how H.G. Wells, how you would have thought about the future with the technology that you have now, but now we could think about the future going back with what's been created, which. Sounds even Dishonored's like that steampunky, dude.
It's very steampunky.
Fucking, that'd be awesome.
It's one of my favorite steampunk properties I think I've come across, and honestly, we need more of them. And I think that is a reason why I would adapt that game too. Is because
it's a great look. I'm a fan
aesthetic. It's a great aesthetic. I'm a fan of it 100%. And plus, I think you could adapt it well enough and narrow the story enough to make it work.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting. There's ways you'd have to film it, and there's ways you'd have to present it in a very specific way, not schlocky or like MCU like or anything. But,
right.
You know, you do it well enough, I think something like that could work. And if you market it right, you could just appeal to people who haven't even heard of the game in the first place. They just like that aesthetic.
Yes.
So I think that could work 100%.
Yeah, no, I'm down. I'm down with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Those
are my like off the cuff answers that I knew I was going to talk about. I don't know if there's
really off the cuff, kind of thought about already.
Well, yeah,
premeditated.
I guess, premeditated. It's not really off the cuff. You're right about that. The definitions are getting muddled.
So you can cut that out in post.
Maybe. I have the power.
Mine's off the cuff, and I still don't have anything on the cuff to go off the cuff with.
That's okay. You learned steampunk was a genre today, so maybe something will come up.
Big win.
Big W.
I'm telling you, dude, I got onto Wiki and I started reading about this. I was like, yes, I fucking love that. I love these types of movies, especially now. In terms of properties that come up, see, like most, I guess I haven't really read anything. I'm such a sports guy, and everything I'm doing right now is so in the moment and not involving anything in terms of media rights. I mean, honestly, a game that if I had to pick, and it's kind of like a lazy answer, but it's my favorite game of all time, Vice City.
I had a feeling you were going to say GTA.
I love Vice, Noir, all of the tie-ins with the greed and the underworld, the underbelly, but it's also when you're in that game is so colorful, and it being on Miami Beach, with some of the, speaking of retro, those 80 themes, 80 colors, where you get like the hot pink or the fuchsia, and you get the white waves going along in the sands, and all these beautiful people moving around, and it's just like
it's very vaporwave.
Very exactly. That is a most excellent way of describing that. Yeah, exactly. And and you could tie in some of that music with it.
Yeah,
some of that get some synth going. And tie-ins. I've watched True Detective season 2, and I've really realized I love when there's a whole lot of connections and networks and things happening with people and money being exchanged through hands. And one of the easier ways to do it's with drugs and laundering through whatever. But I think like a Vice City television series. Give me 8 episodes. Like the two that came to mind that I was just thinking about that actually got adapted. One was Alien vs Predator. I had a video game when I was like 10 or 11 on the PC. It was Alien vs Predator.
Yeah.
And I was always like, God, this would be so sick, you know, like fucking middle school Mac. And then they unfortunately made a movie. Actually, if I could remake, and there you go. If I had to remake one, Alien vs Predator, and try to figure out a way to tie in a theme or a through line or a storyline without having to save the world.
Yeah. Keep the stakes minimal.
To some extent, figure out something, because I think they've tried to do just about damn near everything with that, and it just never works out.
So let me ask you this. Going back to Vice City, who would you cast as Tommy Vercetti?
Ooh.
Since, can't get Ray Liotta anymore.
You
R.I.P.
know, I don't know if we have I don't know if we really have a gritty, dark character like that anymore. Like in the 90s and stuff, you had these guys coming out because the mob movies were coming out.
Yeah.
And, from the 2000s on up, I don't know if we've really had anyone that could step into a role like that. Because, I mean, you got to find someone that's in their 40s, late 30s, early 40s, got a little bit of weight to them, got to have a little bit of a dark look around them.
Do you think Tom Hardy could do it? Maybe. I feel like he could pull it off. Slick his hair back, give him like a bit of a greasy Miami look.
Yeah, believe him British. Don't fucking try to get Tom Hardy doing an American accent. Honestly, that'd be the only qualm I'd have with it. Would be him trying to, come up with and do, because that New York accent and all that stuff. And Ray Liotta doesn't have it, and Tom Sizemore's in that thing. There's like just enough of it, which gives it a little bit more of an organic feel to it. But Tom Hardy would actually probably be fantastic in that role. He would, even though I think he's green and doesn't do drugs or drink anymore.
Man, if it had come out that they were making a Vice City movie like 20 years ago, Val Kilmer, I think, would have been a prime choice.
Oh yeah. Oh
100%.
Yeah, maybe I could come up with, maybe I should just come up and write down characters, and then next time I'll tell you who I'd do in it. Because I think if you did an 8-part series, just eight episodes, don't need to have a storyline get dragged out, start to end, 8 episodes, right? I think they could fucking knock that out of the park.
Yeah.
And I think they could make it fun, and it's got a very Miami Vice feel to it, because that's what I'm also thinking of, like a Don Johnson. And those guys, the slick back hair with the stubble and
sunglasses.
Dude, Colin Farrell in True Detective season 2 is awesome. But he plays more of like the heel and more of like a bouncer role than like a leading man.
Yeah, that's funny because isn't he in a Miami Vice movie by Michael Mann?
He is,
yeah.
But he plays a good guy. That's what I'm saying. So
gotcha.
The Tommy Vercetti guy is kind of like a complex character because
he's like an anti-hero.
That's what he is in the game too. It's not like anything he's doing is great. You're him, so you got to pull for him that he wins.
Yeah, right. He's your boy.
Yeah. But also Fallout. Looking forward to Fallout. Fallout was a game that.
Yeah, we can talk about that when that comes out.
Yeah, because that's coming out on Prime, if I remember right.
In April.
April?
I believe so.
That was another game. I played that game. I don't play a whole lot of games. I played that game. I was like, man, this would be sweet if I could actually just watch,
We'll find out how it pans out.
Yeah.
Got our boy Walton Goggins in it as a ghoul.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Mr. Toothy Wonder himself.
Yeah.
Our last question from Zach. This is one that we've kind of answered before, but this is from a different perspective, I think. So we can go about it a unique way. He asks, if you could have any superhero power, what would it be? For me, I would have the powers of Spawn. You can't be immortal. That's the stipulation. You can't be immortal. So I'm looking at this question from the perspective of not like what superpower would I have, but what superheroes' powers would I take, I guess?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Did I do sneezing quarters?
You did sneezing quarters before. And I don't remember what I did. But the sneezing quarters, that's enough to stick in my memory forever.
I can't do it again, too. Damn it.
Yeah. No, this is like, we're taking a pre-existing superhero and we're taking their powers.
Does Batman count? No, he's a detective. He's a rich billionaire. Yeah, but he doesn't get hurt.
I mean, would you consider taking Batman's fighting abilities as like taking his powers? Because that's essentially his powers, just he beats ass all the time.
He said superpowers, though.
He did say superpowers, so I guess it's supernatural, huh? I don't know. Does Green Lantern makes shit out of anything, right? It's just they're all green all the time.
You're going with the guy that makes green shit.
I'm asking. I'm not going with it. I'm
just
asking.
Want to clarify here, just in case.
I'm testing the waters to see what I can.
Getting a real feel for this. Yeah, but he's got to wear that dumbass ring.
So, yeah, I guess you would. Okay, so here's the question. Maybe this makes it more interesting.
Okay.
Whatever hero you pick, you get their powers, but you also get their costume. You have to wear their costume. Yeah, right? So, like, you pick Wolverine, cool, you get his claws and shit and his, like, adamantium bone structure, but then you also have to live with this smelly clothing.
I mean, Wolverine's got a shelf life, right? Like, he's not immortal.
I don't think he's immortal, but he's...
Because he said no immortality. So, like, you couldn't be Morbius.
No, but I don't think Logan is immortal anyway, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I don't know, because he's like...
He just lives for a long time.
He's like 600 years old.
Yeah. He's lived through like the American Revolution or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought he was with Napoleon.
Yeah, he was with Joaquin Phoenix in France.
Okay. Guess I've never really thought about, yeah, I have. The Incredible Hulk.
Interesting.
Yeah. That'd be...
But you'd rip your clothes every time you Hulk out.
Yeah.
Or you'd have to wear like the biggest, baggiest clothes imaginable.
I only get his superpowers though, right? Like I don't get to be Bruce Banner.
I feel like you would have to be big and green. You're not Bruce Banner, but
no, I'm saying like I don't get his brain. Like I'm not smart.
No, because
I'm smart. Not the way people talk about it.
I'm smart, Michael. I'm smart. That's Fredo from Godfather 2. No, because Bruce Banner being Bruce Banner is not him having a superpower. That's just him being Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
So.
Damn.
Yeah.
Can I be Bruce Banner?
No. Fuck. Can I just be Tony Stark?
That's what I'm saying. Does Iron Man really count? No.
Well, if we're not counting Batman, we're not counting Iron Man.
Oh, that's where I draw the line in the sand.
Because, like, I mean, Captain America's just a big, strong guy, but he's strong because of the serum. So I guess that's his power, is that, like, he got the serum, and now he's, like, fucking ripped as shit and can hold a helicopter in place.
Yeah.
Like, do you count that
as a
also?
superpower?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, but we didn't really talk about chemical agents, I mean, it's all man-created. Like, the serum was man-created. It's not like, like, what's he got in his body?
Wolverine?
Adamantium. Man-created.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like, is that really a superpower, or is it just a mutant?
Right. And then
like,
you get,
could
like...
almost say Captain America's a mutant.
Right, but then you're also definitely saying Hulk is a mutant too, because the Hulk situation is just the Captain America situation, just like times 10.
Yeah, no, you're right. Gamma radiation.
Yeah,
shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it counts. I feel like it counts.
All right, we'll count it. Because I was about to say,
for the sake of fun, we'll count it. I'm gonna pick Ghost Rider because he looks fucking cool. And he also has some neat abilities.
What if I told you...
He pisses fire, and that's rad.
Every time you have diarrhea, you explode and turn into that skeleton.
I'd still do it. Come on, are you kidding? He looks fucking badass, right? He's got the fucking leather jacket and the pants and the skull head, and it's on fire, and he's got the chain.
Man. You're kind of not selling this because you went from Green Lantern to Ghost Rider.
I was testing the waters with Green Lantern.
Yeah, Ghost Rider. What do? I ride a bike.
All right, listen, bikes are cool. Bikes are cool.
With the leather
jackets
jacket.
Are cool. Yeah. Chains are cool.
Yeah, from
anything from Hot Topic and Spencer's is cool.
15 years ago, you're right.
Yeah.
You'd get along with the people that are in their 40s.
I'd get along with a lot of people in Portland, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of now I'm really rethinking. I do like Incredible Hulk, but now I'm also thinking like, I'm not in control of anything. So it would.
I was gonna say you get the detriment too. Like you don't really get to. You're not getting like Bruce Banner Hulk from Endgame. You're getting like Ang Lee Hulk.
Yeah,
where it's like
it shows. Oh, but he is Bruce Banner. So, well, I guess that's where some of the discussion comes in.
You get to nut check a dog when it attacks you.
So what he does?
In the Ang Lee Hulk movie? Yeah, he does that.
Oh, well, those things are mutated too.
That's true.
I was thinking of like Mr. Poodles just walking by and he kicked it or something.
Oh no, that's
what
would be
I was
wild.
like. I was like, man, that was dark. When did I miss that?
That's the director's cut of the film.
You got it's just a really great question, and I've never really thought about what one I'd pick.
Would Hulk be your answer then?
I know we're trying to get this going, but I don't feel very confident if someone approached me and asked me that if I could defend it. No, it's not, because I do like that you can, like, if you told me I could be in control or have clarity with what's going on, but now I'm thinking about it'd be a complete waste because I'd wake up every time and not remember anything. It'd just be like the worst blackout ever.
Yeah.
Every time you do it. So it's like, what's the point? You don't even get to enjoy it, you know? Whereas if I was Ghost Rider.
Hey, you can't. I'm Ghost Rider. You can't pick Ghost Rider. I picked Ghost Rider.
Yeah, every time you eat Taco Bell, you're going to destroy a building.
That's my hope.
I'm gonna go with. I'll go with. I had a great one. Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could have that and like that, the missus like going on and be able to do cool magic tricks, like I could probably make a lot of money being Doctor Strange too.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing like you are gonna be a carnival act, you know, like you're John Coffey going around every town and just going.
I'm Mr. Jingles.
Yeah, well, because there's no evil to stop. Whereas I could profit off this. And now all of a sudden I'm Doctor Strange, but I'm Mac, and I get to do the world's coolest magic tricks until someone gets really pissed off that they can't figure it out and inevitably murder me. But I could probably stop it. But I don't have the time stone. Or do I?
And you're not immortal.
Man, that'd be the worst way to go out. Like, dude, think about that.
You just die over and over again?
No, I'm not saying that. Like, you get murdered because someone can't figure out your magic tricks. Like, that's really pathetic.
Yeah, they just shoot you.
Yeah, at least John Lennon changed the world through his music.
Yeah,
you
right.
know? Like, what'd you do? Made a lot of money pissing people off.
You made some money, and you scared this homeless guy enough to shoot you.
Not homeless. I'd charge a good, healthy rate for my shows. Be like Cirque du Soleil.
This arms dealer.
Dude, that'd be such a great... I'm going to change my answer from Wes to what I just created and turn Doctor Strange into like a profit maker and show the rise of him going through his magic shows. And by the end of it, you know, being like a little portly, disheveled, obviously living off my wealth, but like kind of like a little bit of the there will be blood aspect, you know?
You're describing Nightmare Alley. You're basically just describing Nightmare Alley.
They didn't have superpowers. That's what I'm saying. You know, like imagine like I'm like doing like it starts off doing like these tricks for kids and stuff, and next thing you know, it's plus he rigged the system. I'm not rigging it. It's just the powers I have. But then like when people backstab me or cross my back, I could do some magic and shit and become evil and then like, you know, hey, you owe me money. Next thing you know, I'm holding them over like 3 paradigm levels. Anyways. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I would go to Taco Bell and have some fiery shits. That's me.
I would
Ghost Rider.
I really get a crack out of thinking like being like oh, and then like just
it's the scene in Green Mile where he's going to piss in the backyard.
Yeah,
but it's just fire.
Except as soon as you see the urine come out, his head explodes into flames.
He just turns into Ghost Rider.
Yeah, like how that would be jarring and hilarious.
Oh my god, my rating for that movie would have gone up at least 2 points.
Yeah,
if that had happened.
Then it explains all the supernatural stuff.
Right. It's like fuck it, why not? Make him Ghost Rider. Who cares? Oh my god. All right, well thank you guys for your questions. I think we had some good hearty chuckles from them. Ha ha ha. Speaking of chuckles, you get to chuck a movie my way.
Chuckles the clown.
That you get to recommend.
That'd be my moniker.
It's been a minute since you've recommended a film on the show.
We're gonna watch John Wayne Gacy. Yeah, no.
We're gonna watch a serial killer.
That's a clown.
Yeah, I know.
But that's what
that's your That's your recommendation.
No,
we just watched
just traveling. Oh man, the things you could do. The
possibilities.
Endless.
Yeah.
No. So I think when this comes out, so my brother, that's been on this, is actually having a kid.
Yeah. Congrats to Sam.
Yeah, it's gonna be happening very quickly. So Sam was listening to some of the Spider-Man stuff, and you know he wanted to. We were talking about this, that, and the other, and he said, listen, you have to watch these films, at least one of them at some point. You have to recommend them pod. I said, I will do this absolutely for the next time I get a movie recommendation, which is now. I will do it in honor of you having your firstborn. So we're going to watch Michael Mann's
Thief.
Hey,
hell yeah.
Yeah, he could not stop talking about it. I said, I've been meaning to recommend it. I've wanted to watch other things, but we're going to do it. We're doing it now for Sam. So as much as he's contributed, I think we gotta watch Thief.
We owe it to him.
Yeah,
and this is one, yeah, right. Until we say it's a piece of shit, and then he tunes.
Compared to Green Mile.
Yeah, he tunes us out. Oh my god, that would be tragic. So cool. We'll talk about Thief.
Yep.
And then we can figure out another movie.
We'll pair it with something.
Something new. Oh, maybe we can pair it with The Beekeeper. Oh. You gotta protect the hive.
No. I've already got to watch fucking 3 films in theaters. There's no way I'm fitting a 4th one in here. Though. We'll find out. I don't know. I'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll text.
Yeah.
We'll stay in touch.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for listening to the 64th episode of the Neon Crew podcast. If you don't want to be spoiled for Michael Mann's Thief, starring James Caan, 1981, be sure to check that movie out before episode 65. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. You can find us on neoncrewpodcast.com. We are also on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and give us some 5-star ratings on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Check out our merch page on our Etsy store. We got some shirts for you. You're definitely going to want to swipe those up because, it's still cold, it's still winter. Get yourself a crew neck. Keep yourself warm. That way you don't die of pneumonia. You'll be looking stupid when you do, and you could have thought in your last thought that you have of consciousness, oh man, I could have gotten a Neon crew neck sweater to keep me warm and keep me alive. Don't be a dummy. Get yourself some money to buy the sweater. Hey, there you go.
Rob or pillage, though.
No, don't. We do not permit crimes on this show.
Yes.
Only in the movies we discuss.
Yes.
Shout out to Gideon for doing our music and to Lauren for doing our logo design. You can find their various pages in the description of this episode. And was there anything else I missed? Did I miss? I feel like I missed something, but maybe I didn't. I don't know.
Apple, Spotify,
YouTube,
Facebook.
Oh, Facebook and YouTube community for social media as well. Yeah. Keep up to date with the recommendations and whatever movies you need to see before our next episodes. McClain, what do we say at the end of these?
WWTHD.
Bye, everyone.